You guys are good. Let me just make sure your volume's up so people can hear you. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to me. No. We've got Braden Richards on here, Ian Baker. Braden is also known as Maxreviews. That's his secret identity. Not so secret, though. And we're going to talk about The Bad Batch Season 3 because we've all been just salivating at the opportunity to talk about this show finally. So, what are we going to say? What are we going to start with? Ian, take us away here. You're going to start us up.
Okay.
With the show.
So just like maybe like a little with main thoughts about the show?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed the show, honestly. I had a weird timeline with like watching the show. But,
Yeah.
I don't know. So I started watching the show. First season, I watched it with Benny, and then I keep on hearing noises in the bag. I can't. Like it's like a.
What?
I'm tripping.
What
it's
do you?
I don't know if it's TikTok, but I can't hear anything. That is not us, I don't think.
No, it's not me.
Okay.
What's happening here?
Oh, that's me. It was
okay.
One of the Instagram reels I was talking. I was like, wow.
We're experts, okay, everybody? No questions. We are technological geniuses. We know what we're doing.
So basically, I started watching the show with Benny like 2-3 years ago when the first season came out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it back then, but I wasn't fully well, I was.
Really? I thought you were pretty on board when we were done with that first season.
I was on board a little bit, but I thought it was decent, but I didn't give it like the full chance. And so then I went to university. I didn't even watch the second season.
I kept telling you, it was funny, the timeline, because I would text you like every couple weeks when there was like a really great episode, and I was like, oh, this new episode's so good, you gotta watch it. And you're like, okay, I'll totally watch it. And then you like didn't watch it. And then I finally had to get you to watch it, and I just like dragged you through the mud to get you to watch the show.
I know, you were telling me like, this is great, you have to watch this. And I was like, all right, I'll watch it. I didn't actually watch any shows in university, but then I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. And so we watched the essential episodes from season 2 and 3. And
we watched the whole season 3.
I got the main plot of the story. And I thought it was good. I think there was a lot of, good themes in the story. For such like a small episode, like size of 20 minutes an episode, I thought they gave like a great amount of content to kind of analyze and characters to like follow and character arcs that they kind of like isolated and put out there. And a lot of shows don't accomplish that. Like they'll have character arcs that
just kind of go nowhere. Yeah.
They isolate like 1 or 2 episodes, but not during the whole show. There's no like real progression. It's just like those characters doing this, and this, and at the end, oh, this means that, and you're like, oh wow, that meant that. But at least with this show, you're allowed to follow, the characters growing themselves. Whether that's Crosshair growing, especially. I think you see Omega grow a ton from the first season to the third season, and I liked especially in the third season how they kind of characterized her growth and even like made reference to it from references to like the first or second season. So I don't know. I liked the villains were good as well. I really enjoyed
Victor Hemlock.
These small scale villains that don't have any powers except political power itself, and they use that to their advantage and they become very intimidating. And they aren't intimidating humans, but they're intimidating because of their nature and because of what they think they can do with their power and what they actually can do with their power. And so I found like on a ground level story, I enjoyed this more than watching an Ahsoka show or an Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
People, it's like somewhat relatable. You don't have force powers. You can't levitate. You can't fly. You can't.
Wait, you can't fly? Can force users fly? I didn't know that.
I'm saying like you don't have any like powers really.
Yeah.
The only power they really have is their effort, their merit, and kind of what they decide to do. Whether that is fighting against like the Empire when they're like heavily outnumbered for their family, or if that's at the end of the season 3, finally like being like, okay, this is enough. We need to become like live regular lives.
Live our lives, yeah.
Down. So I thought, I don't know. I definitely go into it more, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm honestly considering watching it again.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it again at some point.
Watching it felt like it went by pretty fast as well. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is dragging on, because each episode was pretty short, like I said. There's a lot of content in there that just kept on building up throughout the season, and I thought they paid off really well in the final couple episodes.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice.
What do you have to say, Braden?
What was my thoughts?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Well, I started watching it day one when the first episode came out back in 2021. That was forever ago. But had a decent start. Season one was mid. It was kind of mid. It grew on me with time. I was like, okay, this is 6 out of 10. I like the characters and stuff and how the story progressed. And I think we talked about this with the other seasons that instead of Clone Wars, instead of it having like super high highs, super low lows, and then middle of the road stuff, it's just pretty much the medium higher end. There's the occasional episode that drops, but for the most part, it's pretty consistent with its story and characters and themes. And since it's just one story, it all ties together pretty well. And then season 2, once again, I would not have watched season 2 if Ben didn't exist. So watched it, and it got a lot. It didn't get a lot better, but it got, I don't know, it had the stronger ending with the characters. I think that's the best piece of the show with, Goggles dying.
Goggles. Tech. Yeah, that was rough. It was rough when Tech went out.
But I don't know, the story of all these clones and characters and stuff, and how it connected to Clone Wars, but also not really having any connection to the whole Dave Filoni verse.
Yeah, thank God.
As like live action, I was very glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
I was very scared they were going to do that.
So was I.
Season 3, I think season 3 was the most consistent. I don't think we had as many random off-beat episodes, like a random racing episode or something.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with Omega, the villains, it all felt very consistent in that we kept hitting the same points. Within the occasional cameo from Massive Ventress or
my God.
random thing.
Stupid Ventress.
And so, got to the end. By the time that we got to the end, I was very sure, like they did with the final season of Clone Wars, that they just like bring in some new characters and like, this is our new show.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did with Clone Wars, where that led into Bad Batch, and then Bad Batch leads into something else to never-ending cycle. But
it was very conclusive, right? Like it didn't really feel like, okay.
It was very conclusive. I didn't expect that like final scene. I was thinking we just sort of end and that's it, and maybe we'll see him again. But nah, they jumped forward and it's over, and it felt conclusive. I was like, man, I've been watching this show for like 3.5 years. It was finally done. And like Ian said, it's real easy to go through. Like I had a solid 7 or 8 episodes to go through, and I binged them all in like one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
The final thing, so that I could do this. But
yeah.
I don't know. I think all the seasons are pretty consistently in the 6.5 range for me. They're all good.
Mm-hmm. Well, elaborate on that though, because I'm curious why you give it that rating. Why do you give it a 6? Because Ian and I are landing much higher on the spectrum.
Yeah. I miss the high highs of Clone Wars. I don't feel like Bad Batch ever got that high. And then even with like...
Okay, but what do you mean by that? What do you mean, like, what highs was it lacking? Because I would argue it had highs that rivaled Clone Wars. Like Crosshair finally defecting, shooting the lieutenant. That's a moment that I can think of off the top of my head. Tech's loss, obviously. And even the ending of season 3, I thought was quite poignant. And I guess it is, when you're looking at them, they are separate entities in the sense that Clone Wars is a more vast, all-encompassing narrative, and the Bad Batch is a more personal story about a collective group, right? And so is it that doesn't appeal to you as much, or is it that like what is behind your thought process on that?
I wasn't nearly as invested in the Bad Batch and Omega and all of it as I was in like certain pieces of Clone Wars and stuff. It isn't easy, since we keep doing the same characters and keep repeating the same stuff, and we're not jumping around, we're just doing this. And I've gotten very comfortable with all of our characters. It's pretty generic. We sort of need to go to a planet to get some money, and then Omega's gone, and then we need to get Omega, and then we get Omega back, and then we're all good, and then Omega gets... And it's a repeated cycle of the same plot a little bit. Little different locations, little different stuff, but I wasn't ingrained in it like you guys have been for the past 3 years.
Okay, but why is that? Like, why were you not so invested in the group dynamic of the characters? Because that's what I cared about most. Was I found that it grew, because that's the thing is like compared to every other Star Wars anything recently, the Bad Batch narrative has felt the most authentic, least manufactured, fake character dynamic that I've seen in any of these shows. You know what I mean? Like, what's an example? The Ahsoka thing, Ahsoka show, all the characters in that were like planks of wood, right? We talked about that, Braden, where it's like you've got Ahsoka and Sabine, and they're like, we're best friends or whatever. Never established before. We're just meant to care, but the acting is like terrible, and you don't get any sense of these characters actually. Ian, you didn't watch the show, right? But I've told you about it and about how they just don't flesh any of it out. There's no, or like Ray Stevenson's character. He's got this apprentice girl, but this whole relationship between them is so vague. It's never explored in any depth. You never care about them. At least I never did. I didn't care about anything happening in that show because it was like stupid. Like I didn't. But the Bad Batch continually took time to explore these character dynamics. Each season built on obviously Omega is kind of the crux around which everything is centered. So first season I would say is arguably the Hunter and Wrecker bond building with Omega. Then season 2 was Tack and Echo's chance to do that, and season 3 was predominantly about her bond with Crosshair and how, she kind of gets him out of this slump, right? He's like completely lost hope and her optimism rubs off on him and they're kind of able to form this very unique, special bond, right? And all that felt like earned, you know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like it was rushed or fake. It just felt very real to me and like human, right? Ian, like what you said something similar to that. What did you tell me?
Regarding kind of like the human aspect of the
show. You said that it felt real. You said something like that.
Yeah, it felt somewhat real. Like, there's a government in place in power that is using its citizens and has used its citizens, and then people are programmed to, like go with like the government and their reactions and not really care or notice. And Crosshair's character, especially just to characterize the human aspect. One of my favorite scenes from like the entire show is when he decides to not give in to the general and not follow orders like he has been following orders like the entire show, because he realizes he wants to reclaim who he is. And so a lot of the times his character and a lot of the characters in the show are what they do, their actions, who they are, is just what's the word? Is kind of decided by the government. It's defined by the higher powers and what they're determined to do.
Oppression. Yeah, it's just this idea of oppression.
I enjoyed that, like, there's an aspect of it, there's a part of the human spirit that always wants to fight back against that and find ourselves, but also find, the realness of the world around us and not just listen to what we're told on the news and listen to, what we're supposed to, listen to. And so I kind of liked that, it showed how people were getting kind of their spirits back and making decisions on their own. And, growing as individuals, because as much as they were, affected and, like, kind of like, I don't know, that they weren't like kind of hidden. They were able to shine through in the end by taking those steps forward. And it's like a leap of faith in family and the Bad Batch and each other. But also, into not following like everything you're being told and not just giving in. Because at the end of the day, what was showed over and over again is that their best interest was never kept in mind of like, the empire or the people in power. It was just, getting more land, getting more, town.
Finding peace. They just wanted to find peace, right? Yeah. That's all they cared about.
They needed to find peace in themselves because they didn't really know who they were.
No.
And so
they were soldiers. They were programmed that way.
Catastrophe, somehow they found out who they were just by fighting and rebelling against the system instead of just settling for, giving into the system. So I thought that aspect of it was very like real in regards to like human nature.
And also like fighting for each other, right? Because that's something that I like about the show distinctly when compared to other Star Wars content in general is it is about a small collective group who choose to fight for each other more so than they're like, oh, we got to fight for the greater good, you know? Because that's what I always found interesting from the beginning of the show is that they're not like interested in the overall greater good of the galaxy. They're not fighting for the rebellion, right? Because that's the thing I said way back when. I'm like, I don't think they would really be interested in fighting for the rebellion because that's not what they're about. They're more about fighting for each other. And sure, Omega takes off at the end to partake in the rebellion because that's who she is. She's got to, you know, do the morally right thing. But the rest of them, they're just like, we want to fight for each other. Even Crosshair by the end. For him, it's all about the rest of them rather than himself, even though it was originally his motivation was self-interest. And he changed, obviously. So that's what I think stands out about this story when compared to a lot of Star Wars, is it's always like, I don't know, the small hero with humble beginnings, and then they choose to fight for the greater good. You know, Luke Skywalker, Cassian Andor. Oh, they're like kind of radicalized. They're like, we gotta fight. And the Bad Batch were never really like that. They were just kind of like, we just want to like chill on our resort island, man. Like, why are you trying to mess with us? Like, they just wanted to chill out, and they wouldn't be left alone. So they fought for their freedom. That's what the story is about, really. It's about freedom. It's about individuality. It's about independence. And even you see, I like how they tied the narrative of the rest of the clones as a whole, right, into the story, because Echo is always in the background. And a lot of people complained about how Echo was underused and all this, but I feel like that was kind of an intentional narrative choice because to them, their primary concern is their whole group. But they do like kind of gradually come to care and respect the other clones, especially Crosshair, with his bond with Mayday and all that. And at the end, I really love the moment when they're, you know, kind of finally uniting, and Echo's like, I have no right to ask this of any of you, but will you stand with us? And they're like, I've got one more fight left in me. And they all stand up to help them fight. I was like, that's awesome. That's a great kind of, even if they don't continue the story of the clones past that point, that's a great payoff for the whole journey of the clones, right? They're still going to choose to fight for themselves. And I didn't even think about it myself when I listened to someone else talking about it. They were like, if you think about it, that's the first time the clones have been given a choice. Because in the past, they were forced to fight. That's what they were made to do. They were soldiers, manufactured to fight war. And when Echo gives them the call to action, they choose to fight, and they're given that choice, which I think was great too. So,
and then,
yeah.
Omega, throughout like even the other previous seasons, she was a lot more interested in doing something for the greater good than any of the Bad Batch members were. So that was a nice payoff to her character by the end.
Yeah, I agree, because that's kind of the interesting thing about Omega's dynamic with Echo in particular, is that Echo is always the one more concerned with fighting the good fight or whatever. He's like, I gotta, you know, go fight with the other clones. You know, we gotta help our brothers. And Hunter's kind of like, well, you know, we gotta just take care of our little family unit, bro. We gotta just stick together here. But Echo had more broad goals to help others. And that aspect of his character rubs off on Omega like a lot, as you can see by the end. That's the thing about Echo, is even at like at the end, you know, you've got the team, they make it out, and they sit down, and they're like, we can finally choose to be who we want to be. And it's Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, and Omega. And Echo still goes off to fight the good fight. You see, you can't give up on it, right? So that's kind of interesting when it comes to him. They're probably going to continue the story with him, I'd imagine.
That kind of ties into his origins with Echo being sort of like tortured and by himself for years, and then none of the Bad Batch members really had that because they had each other except for Crosshair at some point. So
yeah,
that could tie into his motivation a little bit.
Yeah, and that makes a lot more sense to me. You know, because yeah, like I said, a lot of people criticized Echo's like kind of minor role throughout the story, and I suppose that's fair. But I do think that if they do plan to continue his story in future with a more central focus on him, because the end of the epilogue that we talked about earlier does strongly suggest that the rest of them didn't really participate in the rebellion, except for Omega, obviously. Yeah. It kind of implies that they just stayed on Pabu for however long, like a decade. But when Omega takes off, she says, take care of Wrecker and Crosshair. No name, no mention of Echo. So it kind of implies, I don't know, maybe Echo died. I don't know. But I can imagine that if they do make another show focused on the clones outside of the Bad Batch, that Echo would be probably the protagonist, if not like a secondary protagonist to someone like Rex. Like that's what I would expect them to do. Because there's like an element with Rex, right, that we see him in Rebels, and he's this beaten down old hermit, and he's kind of lost hope in the fight. He's kind of like hiding out with, what is it, Wolf and Gregor, the two other clones, and they're just hiding out in the middle of nowhere, and he initially kind of refuses the call to action, which is something that the Rex we know in the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch would not have done. He's like, he just is a stalwart believer in the cause and refuses to give up at any point. So it's like something bad must have happened to him and his whole group, right? If he really gave up. So that's kind of, there's still that gap to be filled in, which I'm interested in it. I would watch that. I don't know about you guys.
I think that might be. Oh, Ian, you can go.
No, my bad. You go.
Okay. I was thinking that would be a bit of a stretch to ask for people who watched Clone Wars and got reinvigorated with a new season, and they're like, hey, the Bad Batch exists 3 seasons of that, and then we get Echo the show. But with their character work and stuff, I think that could actually work out decently, especially since Rex has been there a bunch, but he hasn't really gotten like the spotlight for any more than like 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think because they built up that whole side of the story with like the senators or whatever, like Chuchi and that separatist guy, I forget his name, but they were building up this concept of like an early rebellion being formed. They didn't really conclude that arc. They even had what the frick is her name, like Omega's clone sister lady.
Oh yeah,
she was like joining Echo at the Emery. She was like, I'm going to help you now. So it's like she's joining them or whatever. So I'm assuming that they try to kind of stage some sort of rebellion and it doesn't work out well. That's my guess.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm just glad the show was 3 seasons. Not to say that I didn't want more. I would be opposed to more. But I liked how it was really central to what it was trying to do. The creators knew when they were making the show what they wanted to do, and with these random characters we never heard about, and they knew what they wanted to do with the story, the messages they wanted to give off, and how they wanted to pay it off. There was no area in the show. I mean, there's a couple filler episodes, but even those filler episodes, they build up little nuances in the story that can help add to the payoff. And I think, I think they were never confused about what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go. And as a viewer, that's very pleasing because, a lot of shows will throw you off of what they do. Like Boba Fett's, for example, half the show is Boba Fett, half the show is The Mandalorian. Then you kind of question what they even wanted to do with the story in the first place. Was it every episode they were started writing for the next episode, or did they have all episodes panned out and they were just making some weird choices?
They just wanted to sell a product. They didn't have any artistic intent with it. There was no story.
Brand alive.
Yeah.
There's at least there's order in the show. There's a level of, showcasing what the writer wants to be heard. And I think, especially for bigger fans, but even smaller fans of Star Wars, I think that can be appreciated. I think you do need some prior knowledge before watching the show to really enjoy it to its full extent when it comes to knowing what happened to the clones and all of that. But I think even if you don't have that, just by seeing how these characters kind of grew out of their struggle and grew out of being told they were nothing to end up finding that they are something and fighting for that, is very empowering to watch for sure. I know it's just a show, but
no, it is an inspiring story in a lot of ways. I found myself really connecting with the journey of especially Crosshair too. I see a lot of myself in him, not the fact that I'm a sniper who kills people, but who serves an evil government. But I can even with his anxiety and whatever he's dealing with his hand and all that, I was I feel this guy. I feel his pain and his internalized, not exactly trauma. Yeah, the stakes of it, the fact that these events have consequence. Every major event in the story has consequence, and it's treated with the weight that it should. You know what I mean? That's what I think you mean, Ian, when you say that it does feel real, because there is dramatic weight in the story, and like the stakes are permanent, and they're not like, oh, like I was so ready for them to be like, oh hey, it's Tech, he's back as a stupid assassin clone, but it's like, no, he's dead, he's gone. Like, Tech's gone, like he died.
The show is not flashy either, and it doesn't, use flashiness to sell itself. I think a lot of shows will use flashiness and cool shots, and the show has amazing shots.
Yeah, it's great visually, but it's not about
that's not why people enjoy it though. Like there was a couple times during the show I was like, wow, it's a great shot, that was a good sequence, but it's not why I'm tuning in to watch in the first place. I was tuning in to watch to see what they would do with the characters and how they interact with each other, how they forgive each other. Forgiveness was honestly the main theme I got from this show.
Yep.
I was thinking maybe we could talk about themes, because I think from watching the show, I think forgiveness was necessary to the story. Whether that was forgiveness of the opposition, forgiveness of each other as brothers, as family, and I think it showed that like we all make mistakes and we're all growing and we're all learning. Yeah. Sometimes that's not even up to us. Like a lot of how Crosser acted was because of his childhood and childhood influences and how he was told to be his whole life. And sure, he had a different attachment to that, but he was literally being threatened to act a certain way. He never got to actually explore himself. But with his like family's forgiveness and with their support, he was able to find out what he really wanted in the end. And I thought that was, like that didn't happen like right away. It's not automatic, because no change is ever automatic in life. And so
and he does fail. Like he fails. He when the crucial moment that matters, when he has to land the tracker, he misses the shot.
And that's real, because you're never gonna like change automatically, and you're gonna go through phases where people might not even like you for changing, and you're not gonna like yourself, and you're gonna like come out of that. But then when he really needed to make decisions, he kind of came through, and he's not the only character I want to spotlight. I think Hunter's a great character as well. I think that kind of goes under the radar, his growth, what he had to take on as a person,
as a leader, right? Because all these like heavy moments of decision making fall on him.
Right.
Like he has to make the calls that are sometimes kind of difficult. Like in the moment that we really liked when we were watching it, you pointed out, was in like one of the last few episodes when they're about to latch onto the shuttle that's like about to jump into hyperspace, and Rampart's like, "What are you doing? This is insane. We're all gonna die." And he's like, "Negative," and just takes off. It's like the riskiest shit ever, but he's like, "This is what I've got to do." And it's like, that was a really great moment.
Yeah, to watch the show in general, I think you really need to be attached to the characters and what they are doing. You can't really watch it just to be like, oh, that was a cool fight scene, and that was a dope line, and this is like awesome. What are they building up to? It's more of like, I like that little nuance in how he was like talking. I like that conversation. And so when people say animated kids are for shows, I would say like this is the complete opposite, because the content in these two animated shows, Clone Wars and Bad Batch, are more real than anything I think I've watched when it comes to the sequel trilogy and these other shows. And I'm not saying they don't have that to them. It's just I'm just saying.
Well, most of them don't. You're not wrong. Most of them don't.
There's different level of attention. Like they're very like dedicated to showcasing these characters, and that's the main principle of the show. And I think I really admired that. I think Clone Wars has it as well, but I do think certain aspects of Clone Wars are allowed to get away with not having that as much, because they do have these awesome, dope characters and these cool fights and these cool features that people are attached to. So you can have an episode of people just fighting and some cool like build up and cool lines to a fight. And you're like, that was amazing. Like, let me get more, because you don't get that. While on this show, they just threw in Asajj Ventress. That was a lot of people's like least favorite character in the show, because like just random. So people weren't attached to it to see big names or big highlights. They were attached to it to see little growth within the characters that they can reflect back onto themselves. And so I think in that sense, I think that was why the show was very like satisfying for me to watch at the end. It's not like my favorite show ever for sure, but like from what I've seen from like Star Wars, I think this is some of the best content, because you really have to analyze it. And I think as a viewer, everybody has preferences, but as a viewer, that's a very enriching experience.
Like there is something. What you're saying basically is that there's something to take away from it, which usually there is not. That's my problem, right? Is like that's why I have difficulty talking about Mando or Ahsoka or whatever these other crap shows are that they're making, even this new Acolyte one, it's like there's nothing to think about. It's like streaming fast food. You're like, oh, hey, it's another Star Wars show. Do. Throw it in the garbage. It's gone. It's like nothing. Like there's no value to it most of the time, if not all the time.
I was checking out. I was going through like Letterboxd and seeing all the different Star Wars shows that we've gotten. I'm like, we have gotten a lot of junky Star Wars shows recently. We had the Acolyte, we had Ahsoka, we had all 3 seasons of Mando, which weren't all bad. There was that, Book of Boba Fett, and Kenobi. We just had so much shows that just came and went and slowly faded from the mind in the past 4 years.
Not even slowly. They quickly faded from my mind. Like I forgot about like Obi-Wan like 2 days after I watched it. I don't remember these things. Like what happened in that? I don't know. Boba Fett. They had a big fight at the end that was stupid and nonsensical, and then it ended. Like
those shows like might sell better just because they have those big names, but they don't stick with people as much, I think, as this show does for quite a bit of people. I think. You know,
yeah, like, there's no subtlety to it, right? These other shows, there's no, like, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was watching this video where these guys were like breaking down the Acolyte, and there's this terrible line of dialogue where like one of the main characters is like, I'm leaving, and they're like, you can't leave, and the other one's like, what do you mean? You can't stop me. And they're like, yes, I can. I'll kill you. It's like, what the fuck? Like, that's the most unnatural like dialogue exchange I've ever heard in television. I'll kill you. What? But then, like, and then I was like, I had flashbacks to Bad Batch, watching Crosshair return to the outpost and like build a memorial for his fallen friends that died, and just like quietly mourning the loss of his friend. And I was like, can we get more of this, please? In other shows, like actual good character moments. Like, honestly, that's one of my favorite scenes, probably in the Star Wars franchise, because of how like subtle it is, how many interpretations can be taken away from it. The fact that Hunter watches Crosshair in that moment, the fact that the rest of the Bad Batch will probably never know what he went through exactly, but that they can see through his actions that he's changed in the time that they've been apart. There's so much to that. I can't think about that when it comes to Mando or like any of these. Like there's nothing, there's like, what am I supposed to take away from that? It's nothing. That's what I mean. It's like I care.
A perfect call out to those shows, because you don't actually know who the voice actors are. There's no big names that are bringing you in, and the budget isn't even that big. But it's it's spent well, and it's
the same guy. It's one guy voicing like every character. That's the thing. Yeah, it's the guy. D. Bradley Baker does all of the clones. It's the same guy. They make you care about the same guy.
Pretty insane.
It's really, it's impressive.
And so shows that have a $200 million budget cannot produce like a quality story. Then what does that say about the intention and the care they're putting into that story? So I think this is obviously just appreciate everything for what it is. So obviously I appreciate this show for what it is. But I think it also demonstrates that there's like potential for better stories from the same company. It's just the amount of intention put into it, and so this show had a lot of intention to that, so I can appreciate that. And I'm curious to see what they do, but some of my favorite movies are from the 80s and 90s, and I kind of wish, I pray they don't add on to them. I think it's a great piece of work, and hopefully it just people start to like it more over time, because I think that's a lot of stuff things that aren't flashy and aren't curated to the eye necessarily will be like, oh, that's okay. It's like, oh, it's a little too much for me. It's like, what's here? Like, where is this? Where's this? Where's that flashiness to it? But then as you watch it again over time, it's like, oh, wow, I can appreciate this, this, and this. And, And I think as I continue to watch it, I'll notice more and more. And that's the nice thing about, watching film and shows in the first place.
It's like good storytelling. It's like basic good storytelling. It's like you should want to go back and watch it. It shouldn't be disposable trash that you put on in the background and forget about 2 seconds later. Which is what most of Star Wars is now, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but that's the thing. I just don't think that a lot of it is even remotely of quality. And this is such a weird little outlier of a story that I really love. I'm like, wow, this was great. Leave it be. And I love that it had, like we said, it had a conclusive ending. How surprising is that, huh? Like,
yeah, no, I was surprised, honestly, and maybe I shouldn't have been because of the quality of the story beforehand. But like, especially with big companies, the endings are sometimes like dissatisfying because they're trying to sell the products like right at the end of the show for the next show.
Or like they have to have the credit scene at the end that's like, you're gonna join the Avengers or something.
An example of that is that Hawkeye show when Kingpin comes in at the end with his Hawaiian shirt where he's running down. Logically it makes no sense because he should have like a bunch of hitmen trying to attack him if he goes out in the street. But then also it's like he had no like relation to the story whatsoever until near the end. And then when Echo kills him, and it's like, oh, this Echo character is interesting, so let's make a show about her. I want to see more. This show is not like that. It's like we're paying homage to the characters we've developed and grown. And, it doesn't matter what else is left because we know we can make other good stories, but this is the good story what we want to capitalize on and really demonstrate what we've been trying to, like, accomplish over these last couple seasons.
Yeah. And it doesn't do anything to, like, break the lore or contradict like established canon. Like it's not like, oh, we're gonna have this crazy, like, I don't know, freaking like Hunter turns into Superman and flies out of the atmosphere, just some crazy thing. Like I'm exaggerating, but that's basically what they've been doing recently with this stupid stuff. Like, I don't know.
Especially with Ahsoka, and they're like, there's another galaxy that we need to get to.
Yeah, it's like okay.
We never heard of there's no point just to make things sound bigger than they are. And with the point of like Bad Batch having these seasons to develop, I'm thinking about with Marvel, with Hawkeye, with Echo, with Marvel and Star Wars especially, the only shows that are like getting sequels are either, well, there was What If, and then there's Andor, obviously, and then we have Bad Batch, but like, that's it. All the rest of them are just to set up a different show, then a different show. This one is just going through its thing, and I don't think they'll come out with, we'll see what comes out next Star Wars Day, but like, I don't think they're going to do a continuation of the Bad Batch in any form for at least a year. It's going to take a little bit.
Yeah, it takes time to work on the animation.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's not like when they shot Kenobi in 2 months or whatever. Remember that? They rewrote the scripts 50 times. That was great. It's like, yeah, it just feels like there's actual care put into it. There's a lot of videos, if you just look on Instagram, where like the crew and the cast and the directors and stuff are talking about how much they cared about making it. And it's just like, oh, thank you. And I believe you. I believe that you cared because it shows in your work. A lot of the times you see these like videos where they're like, we were so like, it's like, I don't know, what's an example, like Madam Web, where they were like, there's some video where the director's like, I'm really proud of this story that I told, and it's like garbage. It's like, you're just like,
yeah. Dakota Johnson said something in the genre of, I've always wanted to play like Madam Web, and then she doesn't even know what the character is.
Yeah, it's like this fake like promotional stuff where they're like, I really love this. I don't actually know what happens in it.
I think you said something in the genre. It might have been some behind the scenes Marvel or Star Wars, or it might have been the Percy Jackson show where they were like, we just wanted to do a lot of practical sets, and then it cuts to a CGI shot.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it was like it was like Black Panther too, in like the behind the scenes documentary, and they're like, we really tried to do a lot of authentic green screen, or no, they're like, we wanted to have this authentic swimming scenes where they're underwater, and then like it cuts to them like underwater on a blue screen. It's like, wow, yeah, this is what he says, like, this is practical filmmaking at its finest or something. It's like, you're full of shit. Shut up. It's like, no, you're not.
A lot of that stuff, because if you're gonna work on Star Wars, I don't think, unless you know what the Bad Batch are, you don't really want to immediately go for these no-name characters, because you want to work with like the big leagues, so like Clone Wars characters, the actual new movies or something. But at this point in time, the Bad Batch has been, I'd call it the most consistent Star Wars thing, because it's only been it's only been like, oh, how to say this? It's the only Star Wars thing that's like repeatedly coming out without spawning a different show or just drifting off in different directions. It's the most consistent.
It was like an actual well thought out story that was consistent and had like a beginning, middle, and end. Didn't feel a need to set up a million other products. It wasn't like, okay, here's this other thing. like the only thing that kind of felt like that was when Ventress showed up for no reason and left, and it was like, why? What was that? We're gonna make a Ventress show.
Those cameos and there are surprises with Cad Bane, Fennec Shand, Palpatine. They had little bits of them, but it wasn't like noticeable. They just came and went. As a Ventress, they really sort of...
She overstayed her welcome in the narrative. Like, she didn't need to be there. Especially because the plot line that they introduced where she was like, Omega might have the Force, but maybe not, but maybe she does. And then it was like, no, she didn't. So why were you there? Just to, like, tell them? Because it's like what she told them, all she told them was, oh, yeah, by the way, those midichlorians, that means that you have the Force in your blood. And they were like, great, thanks. Like, that's what it should have been. That's what like, or you could just have Fennec send them a text, and be like, "Oh, I talked to my contact. They say that this is what midichlorians are. All right, good." Because that's like the one part of the season that felt totally off to me was where it's like they go on a weird side quest with Fennec to what did they do? They bounty hunted a guy, and then she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna tell you this info later," and then she sent Ventress, who like hung around for an entire episode and didn't do anything, and I was like, what? And then the plot happened again, and I cared, and I was like, oh, okay, so we're back. Like, it was this weird interlude that made no sense.
Yeah, I actually honestly would have preferred if Ventress just showed up in the Ahsoka show, just jam her in that, where I thought she would, but she didn't, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Or just have her be dead, or just have characters stay dead. You can do that too.
I don't think they ever killed her, did they?
She did. She died in a book. They killed her in a book, which was originally a set of episodes from the Clone Wars that they adapted into a book. They just kind of left her fate ambiguous in the Clone Wars. But a lot of people like that book. Apparently, I've never read it. I couldn't read it because it was in the format of a screenplay or something, and I'm not really the biggest fan of reading.
Oh yeah, I've done 2 or 3 of those. Those don't really read too well.
No.
They get boring after a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm like, whatever. It's just like, I don't really care about Ventress that much. So I'm just like, all right, well, it's kind of stupid that she was there. Whatever. Yep. Bye-bye. You didn't need to be in the show.
The one thing that I was kind of wanted to look into or wanted an explanation for, I was really thinking that we'd get an explanation for, was the whole cloning facility and the midichlorians and like the Zillo Beast and like all this stuff that Palpatine's working on. I'm like, this is like the cloning stuff that was in Mando, and I'm like, this is leading towards like how Palpatine got returned or whatever. And I was like, isn't that how this fits in? But at the end, it was just like, yeah, the place, it didn't work out. We're doing the Death Star now.
Well, the idea, I'm pretty sure, like, yeah, it does connect to that, but the idea is essentially that the Bad Batch threw a wrench in the works because when you see Palpatine in the Rise of Skywalker or whatever, he's like a rotting zombie falling apart. So he's not actually like, the idea is that he wasn't able to effectively clone himself, and it was like some kind of like strand cast failed attempt kind of thing. And it wasn't until he had the dyad of Rey and Kylo Ren or whatever stupid thing they made up that he was able to actually restore his full life force, essentially. So the idea was that Hemlock was trying to successfully replicate a midichlorian count, and the only way he could do that was with Omega's blood. She was the only one that was compatible with the Force-sensitive children. But
yeah, and that was a cool callback because Cad Bane is still stealing kids, which he's been doing that since like season 1 of Clone Wars. He's still stealing kids.
Oh boy, Cad, what's your issue, man? It's a bit weird.
And then, I think, what else is there? As always with Star Wars, they're sort of doing stuff out of order because if, say, Mando and the pieces they had there with Palpatine and working on cloning him and the pieces with Bad Batch came out before Rise of Skywalker, that would have been really compelling at points, but since they rushed like 5 movies, 5 movies out in 5 years, we didn't have all the shows and it just didn't all connect at all.
Well, it's because they had no plan when they wrote the sequels, and so they're trying to retroactively fix it, which is stupid.
Yeah, which I guess if you have anybody committed enough to watch the entire Star Wars saga timeline in order with, it would be 10 seasons of Clone Wars and 14 seasons of Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch, and then watch all the, like, that's a lot, but at least they're trying, I guess.
Yeah, it just, like, honestly, that was the least interesting part of this show to me, was the whole cloning thing, because it just felt like, okay, here's this retroactive attempt to tie it into the Skywalker storyline, which was, like, fine. It was just kind of like, okay, it was there. but it was intended to kind of bounce off the actual main story, and like
it was a decent set piece. I felt, we were very familiar with like Omega's containment place, and it all worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I liked kind of the creepy atmosphere of like what do they call it, the vault or whatever. And it was like when they had all the kids there, and it was like, oh, this is kind of like very uncomfortable. When they had that whole episode focused on Emery, and she was like slowly starting to realize that this was like really fucked up, and she didn't want to be involved in it.
Yeah, which I don't know. It was really cool how all the pieces coincided with this. Where it doesn't seem like this big burst of like, whoa, all this stuff. They slowly revealed pieces, which felt very. It's not like Ahsoka where it's introducing a concept that just breaks a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then they just sort of like leave it, and they're like, we'll explain another time. This is something that's sort of like pulling all the scraps together that we have with the Star Wars universe and sort of making something that makes sense with like the Zillow Beast and like Cad Bane's still out there doing stuff. That Ass of Ventress was probably more of a fan thing than anything else, but she showed up, and then the clone stuff, all this different Palpatine doing stuff in the background, and they all pushed it together, and it worked pretty well, just as the show in general, but then also as a Star Wars entry.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's what I mean is like there's no breaches in logic or world building. Like, it all fits well into it's like the same way I feel about Andor is like Andor is also this great self-contained story that fits well into Star Wars as a whole. Like, that's the thing is like when I watch something like Ahsoka or Mando or whatever, I'm like, I can't even like pretend that this is the same universe because there's so many breaches in the logic of like basic physics and like anything to do with the world building they've established is like constantly being destroyed in like really stupid ways. Even the sequels do that too. But it's like Bad Batch doesn't have anything like that. It like uses the world building to its advantage. But it's also like it is a smaller scale, more intimate story. But it does like it fits well into the rest. Like you don't need to watch it. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, oh, you need to watch The Bad Batch to be a fan of Star Wars. It's like, no. But it's this nice little supplemental story that does enhance other aspects of Star Wars, in my opinion, especially the whole like the idea of the conception of the clones and their ultimate fate, how they actually feel about their position in the galaxy in the aftermath of the war and such. But it's not like essential viewing. I think that it still is a great story on its own. And you don't, that's the thing, like Ian, you were saying you need a little bit of background on this and that and the fate of the clones. I don't even know if that's true. Because I've gotten comments from people and even my parents, my parents and I watched like barely the Clone Wars. Like we watched couple arcs from the latter half of that show, like the whatever Siege of Mandalore, like Order 66, and like Fives and the whole inhibitor chip conspiracy plot line. We didn't watch that much though, so they got into the Bad Batch and they cared about the story and the characters, even though they didn't have a ton of background. They barely watched Rebels. I only watched like the Thrawn episodes with my dad. So I don't think you need to have an appreciation for Star Wars as a like, you know, a large entity to enjoy the show on its own. Like it helps, sure, because then you'll understand, okay, what's going on with Rex, you know? Like if Rex is in there, it's kind of like, oh, maybe you need to go back and see how he became this stalwart believer in the ideals of the Republic and whatever. But you don't need that, really.
No, you don't really need it. I just think like Order 66, Rex, certain aspects of how Palpatine works, him hiring new people being disposable, the new troopers, things like that, where it's like you might have a better appreciation for it and like on how they're actually like doing it if you like understand what was happening at the Empire at that time, like that's demonstrated in the other movies. But like even without that, like those characters are still fine and those characters still like serve their purpose.
Yeah.
Like even those that assassin guy was very like powerful, man.
What's his name?
My God.
That was intense. Yeah, when he like almost killed Crosshair, I was like, whoa, shit, this guy is knocking people out. Like he killed like a whole troop of clones on his own, and then survived getting blown up and sent over a waterfall. Like he was unstoppable. So like, and that's something else too. That's a good point. Is that there's a clear demonstrated competence of the Empire it feels like a threat, you know? Like, they don't feel like they're dumb idiots who show up and they get shot and die or whatever. Like, one of the examples I always point to in modern Star Wars to prove this point is like the one episode of Mando when Boba Fett shows up and he's like, I want my armor back, Mando. And then they like fight a bunch of stormtroopers. But the stormtroopers have like no military tactics. They just like come off the shuttle and they're like, okay, shoot. And this guy's like literally shooting Fennec, missing every shot as she's running across this like rock face. Then she kicks a rock at this guy with like a Gatling gun and he just stands there shooting the rock with his gun. It's like, bro, move. And then he blows up and dies because he's a freaking idiot. Like, that's what I mean. It's like these guys are so stupid. I never believed that the Empire is a competent threat in any of these shows. Like Ahsoka, you've got Thrawn, arguably one of the smartest, most brilliant, tactically brilliant characters in the Star Wars franchise. And he's an idiot. He's a dumbass. He's like, oh, I've got a plan. Don't worry. It's all going according to plan. And then he fails like at every turn until the very end, where he conveniently escapes because the heroes just so happen to be stupider than he was. Like, that's what I mean. It's like, that's not how you write an antagonistic force in anything, in any fiction. You don't have them be like, oh, they won out just because the heroes were slightly dumber than the bad guys. Like, no, that's terrible. It's like the Bad Batch are clever and capable, but the Empire has strength in numbers. And also, it helps that Dr. Hemlock is a smart dude, and he always has a counter for them until the end, because you know what? Hemlock doesn't value basic human traits of compassion and empathy. He doesn't care about people. And that's what he underestimates about them. They've got each other. What does he have in the end? Nobody. No bargaining power. He's on a bridge over a chasm holding the one person he actually needs to succeed at gunpoint, who like calls his bullshit and says, you're not going to kill me because you need me. Like, that's the thing. And in the end, he has nothing. And all those guys, Rampart, whoever else, they all think they're such hot shit. The guy, Lieutenant, who, like, whatever, Crosshair killed, he's like, oh, clones, you're so disposable. You're just such shit. And then he just gets shot and he dies on the tarmac like an asshole. Because they have no value. They're all expendable and disposable. Rampart got blown up like an idiot because he thought he had bargaining power. It's like all these people thought they're such hot shit. And then it's like, well, you died like you're nothing. When when Hemlock's talking to Rampart and he's like, you know, you just suck, but me, I'm important. And then he dies, like, and Tarkin just waves it away, like, well, he sucked. Let's go divert all funding to Project Stardust now. You know? Like, no, I don't care about Hemlock. He wasn't important to anybody. That's the thing. They all think they're so important, but they're not. The Bad Batch, they're important to each other. They matter to each other. They work as a collective. All Hemlock had were these brainwashed assassins who he, like, tortured into submission. That's all he had.
Yeah. The power of power or the power of family.
Yeah.
Which one is like substantial, which one is sustainable, and which one is actually true.
Which one wins out in the end?
Yeah.
It's not Hemlock's idea of power.
I do think it showed like the level of intimidation of the villains, like you said. Like the clone troopers have always been kind of like dumb, and like even the droids and like the prequels have been like, oh, these.
The clone troopers or the stormtroopers? You just said the clone troopers. So I'm kind of. Are you sure about that?
The robots.
Battle droids?
Battle droids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, battle droids. Battle droids are pretty much jokes. Stormtroopers are pretty much jokes at this point. And clone troopers have always had some intimidation to them.
They've always had tactical skill because obviously, like, whatever, Jango Fett was a smart guy, and that's who their genetic template was based on.
Yep.
But like the fact that in this show the Empire does feel like a threat. There are smart people like Hemlock, and even just like they actually show what they're capable of. They show them showing up and occupying planets and torturing people and doing terrible. Andor did that too, but this show goes into that a lot. They're like, okay, how much the Empire doesn't care about individuals, about like collective groups, even about their own soldiers. When the guy's like, when Mayday dies and he's just like, he served his purpose. Like, oh my God, that you suck. Like, this is bad news, you know? So it's like, and it does, you know, it gives Crosshair a reason to turn on them. It's like, why would Crosshair freaking want to serve these guys? Because they suck. That's what the rest of them tell him. They're like, why do you keep working with these guys? They suck. And Crosshair's like, no, I need purpose in life. And he finds purpose with them. Because at the end of the day, they had his back. Empire never did. That's the thing. They always had each other's back. Till the bitter end, right? Except it wasn't a bitter end. It was actually a nice end. Because they get to live out their lives together on their little resort island. Which I like. I like that. What did you think about that, Braden? I'm curious. Did you like that they kind of got their little happy ending?
I'm very happy that happened. I really, in the final, 3 episodes, I'm like, well, this is getting a bit much. I would have been surprised if they all died and just Omega survived, or, all of them actually died. And I would have been fine with that, but I'm glad they got their happy ending type thing, and then we get to jump forward and see Omega leave. And I really liked how that went with sort of, the same thing with different clones. I don't remember the specific names and stuff throughout the Clone Wars, that they got to retire and just stop fighting after all this time. And they have their little family and their own little planet. It all worked out quite well. And there was, what was it? There was a lot of points where I'm like, there's different ways this could go and different ways this could pan out. And I was like, is Crosshair going to make it? Are they going to kill another character? The thought of, I didn't actually think they'd bring Tech back, but that was in the back of my mind because they could have. And then how's it all going to work out? Because just with all our characters and how they end and what they mean to each other, it's like as many of them are gonna make it out as possible, and they all actually did, which was surprising. And then only casualty was Crosshair's hand, which I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, that was pretty substantial too, though. I like that too. That it's not like it wasn't easy. It wasn't like, oh yeah, they got in and saved the day and flew away in a blaze of glory. It's like, no, Hunter got tortured. Crosshair lost his hand. Wrecker got his ass kicked. Wrecker got beaten up. Everybody was in terrible shape, and they only made it out a millisecond before Tarkin jumped in. That was crazy when they flew away, and then immediately after Tarkin jumps in, it's like, whoa, that was lucky. Good timing, or else you guys would have been screwed. It was a difficult thing. It was it felt like it could have had a Rogue One-esque conclusion where they all go in and whatever, they don't make it. But it's they did, but it was by the skin of their teeth. And it was never not suspenseful. I was worried about them. I was like, oh my God, what's happening right now? When they're all going in and Crosshair gives that speech about how he's like, this is what I deserve, I'm going in alone. And they're like, no, we're doing it together. And then they get all beaten up by those freaking assassins. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening here? This is bad.
Yeah. And a bit of the symbolism with Crosshair losing his hand, that was his problem originally, killing people with orders, and then he actually has the problem where he can't shoot, and then he actually loses his hand, and I don't know, now he could be a farmer or whatever.
Yeah, he kind of, that's the manifestation of his, I guess, not only his past with the Empire, but also his trauma, what he went through with Mayday, what he did. There's that scene when he talks to Hunter and he's like, I've done terrible things. I feel so guilty about what I've done. And so it's in a way, it's him being freed of that. He can move on now from this thing that haunted him. Because it's every time he's fearful or he's haunted by his past, that's when his hand starts acting up. When he's when he sees all the soldiers blocking their entrance and he's like, we have to fall back. All these moments where he's afraid. And his hand starts acting up because he's I think it's also he's afraid of losing his family, essentially. Because he's this is all I have now. He thought he lost everything. Friggin' Omega came into his life, kind of gave him that sense of optimism again, brought him back to reality, gave him a renewed purpose. And then here he is, and he's I already lost one of them. Tech died. I didn't even get to see him die. And now I'm here with the last of them. I'm not going to let them die. So he wants to go in himself. He wants to give his life for the crew. And then he's they work together and they make it out together. When he kind of repays the favor to Hunter, Hunter's don't even think about it. We're going with you. And then at the end, Hunter's you should stay here. I'm going to get Omega. He's not a chance. He's we're doing this together. And that's kind of the important aspect of that. Is there unity? And when they did work together, that's when they succeeded, because Crosshair failed before because he was afraid. And then at the end, when he has the restored confidence of both Hunter and Omega, Hunter's like, look, you got this. He's like, Omega knows what to do. Wait for her and take the shot. And then he takes the shot, which is like a great payoff to his whole arc throughout the season, which is like he lost that ability, which made him so special, basically. He's like, this is what makes me, indispensable to the Empire, is this special shooting ability that I have. And then once he lost that, he's like, what do I have now? I have like no purpose. And then he is able to regain a new purpose with his family. So I thought that was, I agree. I thought that was very well done. Crosshair's whole journey was really well done. I have like no real problems with his arc.
Yeah, I remember back in season 2, like my one complaint about Crosshair's thing is I didn't get enough of it because they're swapping back between him, Bad Batch, him, Bad Batch, him, Bad Batch. And now we actually have them, for the most part, him and Omega together, him and the Bad Batch together. And it felt a lot more solid throughout all of it, more consistent with how we were pacing things. Because first season, I wasn't really invested as much. And I know you were, but you were surprised by it. I really liked it. But like, it took me at least halfway through season 2, through the entire show, I guess, to get invested in these characters. And then by the time we got there, I was really invested in Crosshair. We're just swapping between them, and I heavily prefer Crosshair. In season 3, I was like about as invested in Crosshair as I was in the other characters, and it just all evened out with the villains and all the different plots. And we went out of the repetitive, go to the lizard lady, get a job, it works out or it doesn't work out, and then we need another job, then go to the lizard lady, and then we get another job, and just a lot of that to just get credits. It got pretty boring after 2 seasons. Now we have season 3, which I would say it's the best season. I think they kept getting just a little bit better season by season.
Yeah, I agree, honestly.
But
yeah, it was just well done. It's like, seeing his, and I think that what you're saying is kind of indicative of how loss kind of brings you together, right? Because they're like, they were separated and they went their separate ways because of a conflict in belief. And Hunter told Crosshair at the end of the first season, we want different things, but that doesn't mean we have to be enemies. And Crosshair kind of, I don't think he clung on to resentment, but he kind of thought that they were a lost cause when he talks to Mayday, and Mayday's like, oh, what unit were you with? And he initially refuses to tell him, and then eventually he says, oh, it was Clone Force 99. He's like, what happened to them? He's like, they're gone. And it's like, to Mayday, that probably implies that they're dead. Crosshair doesn't know. I don't think he really knew at that point if they were alive. He probably assumed, but he was just kind of accepted that they were gone. And he was like, I'm not going to get that back. Probably partially feels guilty too for betraying their trust. And it's always Omega's the one that kind of is the link that binds them together. She brought him back.
yeah, because there's the resentment between Crosshair and then Hunter Wrecker, and Tech was kind of another middleman of sorts, more man of like Omega and Logic, and then Echo being kind of a wild card with his opinion on everything. But
yeah,
Omega is pretty much the binding force between them, or else they would have torn each other apart, I'm pretty sure.
It's like especially Hunter, right? Because he feels the most personally betrayed by Crosshair of all of them.
Because I was like his right-hand man, and then it didn't work out, and then bringing him back, and then can you ever trust him again? And he doesn't have to trust Crosshair, he can trust Omega, and then eventually he learns to trust Crosshair again. But he's letting him take the shot.
Yeah.
Because Omega trusts him.
Yeah, and it's also just kind of like believing, the ending of the 5th episode is another great scene, right? When Crosshair says, okay, like he finally opens up and admits his guilt, and Hunter's like, you know what? I've got regrets too, but we can still move on and keep trying to be better. We can still keep growing as a unit. So it's kind of like I find that interesting because it's not even Hunter affirming that he's like totally forgiven Crosshair or something. He's just like, yeah, we all make mistakes. Life is tough. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Like it's not like this cheesy, like, oh, we're all bros again. We love each other. It's like, no, you know what? There's wounds here that can never really be healed, but we can still just keep going.
Wrecker's up for that. Wrecker's up for the bros hug thing.
Oh yeah, he was in there. He was in there. Like, there's not even any blood this time. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
But I thought that was great. Because and that's the thing. There is subtlety to it. There is subtext to be analyzed with the relationship between all the characters, like the different bond that each of them share with each other. They all have like a different, like unique bond with each other. You know what I mean? It's not all the same. They're not all like, oh yeah, we're all just buddies. It's like Hunter's relationship with Crosshair is far different than his relationship with Wrecker, for example. Like there's like this contrast between their different personalities that's always interesting to see when they're working together or when they're just having a conflict of belief. Like I said, it's just great. Yeah, and then obviously, you know, Tech's loss is kind of the thing that unifies them. It's like, okay, like this guy, whether or not, you know, okay, Crosshair went his different path. He went with the Empire, and the rest of them chose to follow their hearts or whatever. But whether or not they kind of agreed, like, you know, Tech mattered to all of them. So Crosshair still feels that greatly. Like that still weighs on him, even though he wasn't with them. Maybe doesn't even know all the details of what happened, but he still feels guilty about it. He still misses Tech because they were brothers. They were like a family unit, and it's like this one of them is gone now. And it's like, how do you kind of process that? And it's kind of interesting that you don't actually, I guess you do see the immediate aftermath of it, but it's like when you get to season 3, they've kind of accepted the loss. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's sort of like always in the background a little bit, that Tech's dead, especially seeing the goggles and stuff. But they don't immediately like address it and break it down and stuff, or just like are just crying in the corner over it. It's because they're soldiers, and then Omega is just slowly processing it in her, well, I'd say mature way, even though she is like a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of like that was a piece of season 2 that does affect season 3, but it's not going to be a repeated hit down plot point that we always have to remind everybody in the audience that Tech's dead.
Yeah, it's like they don't have to like cry about it all the time. It's not like an overdone thing where it's like it's an overindulgent, I think is the word, right? Because like you see this a lot in media where a character dies and then like every episode, if it's a TV show, or like every scene, if it's a movie, everything after the fact has to be constantly reminding you about how they died and how great they were.
Yeah, because it's sort of like Ezra in Ahsoka, where Sabine decided that she'd risk the entire galaxy just to get Ezra back, and then she meets him and it's sort of like fist bump, we're all cool, right? Whereas like if you contrast that with the Bad Batch, any single one of them would sacrifice anybody except for maybe Omega, and that'd be because they all prefer Omega. Like Tech, it would have been like a very sad thing, but none of them would have risked the entire galaxy, I don't think. Well, actually, now that I think of it, the Bad Batch don't really care about the galaxy as much as they care about each other. So, yeah, but there'd be a lot more conflicting emotions going on than we got with Ahsoka with the Ezra, where it's like, obviously, he's my friend, I'm going to get him back.
Well, yeah, and then just the fact that the show capitalizes on character conflict, on these potential dynamics, like it actually bothers to explore them. Like I said, the fact that when Crosshair comes back, it's not this immediate welcome back to the team, bro. It's like there's a lot of distrust, there's some animosity, there's like a lot of hurt feelings. Like they don't know how to feel about it really, and it takes a whole episode for them to process that and move forward.
To be back to normal, but it can't be, so they're trying to figure out what to do.
Exactly.
What they need to do to get that back.
It's like treated with realism. It's not like, okay, we're good. Like we were saying with Ahsoka, right? The fact that there's a ton of like character conflict they could explore with Ezra and Sabine. The fact that she did basically sacrifice the whole galaxy to get this one guy back. How does Ezra feel about that? I don't know. They never talk about it, right? It's like he keeps asking, so how did you get here? What's actually going on? And he's like a clueless buffoon. And she's like, no, don't worry, we'll talk about it later. And they never do. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess that didn't matter. Like this huge character decision had no consequence ultimately, like on her relationships with other people. I guess it did in the sense that Thrawn got away or whatever, but it doesn't strain her relationship with Ezra or Ahsoka or anyone. They're just like, cool, man. You just like risked the lives of millions, thousands of people. All good. We're good, man. It's like, no, and Crosshair arguably has never done anything as severely bad as Sabine did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they still can't get over it because he betrayed them. It's sounds wrong to say intimate for a bunch of dudes and Omega, but like personalized.
Yeah, it's a personalized conflict that is taken seriously. That's why like I care about it, because it's not like, okay, they don't feel like they're like in a show. You know what I mean? Like these other shows, like especially Ahsoka, like it feels like the characters know they're in a show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the writers know that they're writing it for a show, and we got to get to the next episode of this episodic Star Wars Dave Filoni universe. So
yeah. It's like the fact that the first episode of Ahsoka ends with Sabine getting stabbed. Next episode, she's like, fine. It's like, oh yeah, no, never mind. It was fine. It's just a flesh wound. Lightsabers, they don't matter anymore. It's like, what the hell are we doing, guys? Come on with this. Like, are we like, and that's what I mean. Like, Bad Batch has moments of like severe conflict and like moments that are meant to be taken seriously, and they're treated with weight and severity. They're not like, okay, yeah, moving on. It's not like a member of the Bad Batch gets like stabbed and then in the next episode they're all cool. It's like, no, what? Like that makes no sense.
No, it's a repeated thing, and then even if it isn't like a physical problem, that's not big of a thing. Like Crosshairs, his thing was all mental.
Yeah, exactly.
It's physical with his hand, and so it wasn't like he got stabbed by a lightsaber. It's more like emotional inside, like him just deteriorating.
Yeah, like these traumatic events have left scars on him that are not physical. So there is like, it's not like, okay, and sure he lost his hand or whatever. To be fair, Cad Bane shot Hunter and he was fine. I guess that's true.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'd forgot about that too. Well, I guess like, isn't it like their armor is designed to be more like?
But still, that's
that
stretches with what you can do with it.
No, I agree with you on that. I'm just saying like there is some level of like suspension of disbelief I can kind of make with that particular instance.
Yeah, they gotta make Cad Bane prove that he's still cool after.
That's one of my least favorite parts of the show is its stupid Cad Bane plotline. I don't know what you think about that, Braden, but like the fact that it didn't go anywhere, like they were like, Omega's been captured. Oh shit, what are we gonna do? And then it's like they get her back immediately and they're like, okay, we're cool. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's like I said earlier, that for like 3 seasons we've had the, oh no, Omega got captured, we got to get her back, and you don't know if that's going to last for like an entire season, kind of like it did with season 3, or if it's just going to be a episode of, oh no, Omega's got you. That's like the easiest way to get the Bad Batch to do anything.
Yeah.
Same thing with like Mandalorian, and he's got a mission, he's got a bounty, and that's our way to get the plot moving.
Yeah. Well, here's the distinction I want to make. Here's what I want to say. Like why I like Bad Batch as opposed to Mando is every time Omega gets captured or something bad happens to Omega or whatever, it serves as thematic purpose, and they learn from it in some way, right? Like, okay, even though I think the Cad Bane plotline was resolved a bit too quickly, the fact that she got captured so quickly and they were like, oh crap, this is bad news. It like served as a wake-up call for them, because I don't think they really realized before that point in the show, because it was just kind of like, you know, episodic adventures with the Bad Batch. They're going to go do a job over here. But then suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, right. We're fugitives, actually. And we just decided to go rogue against an oppressive, like, Nazi government. There are going to be people sent after us. Like, this is bad, actually. So, like, I think that was important in that sense. Second time Omega gets captured, it's like literally their worst nightmare coming true. Tech just died. They like Sid, their buddy, their boss or whatever, just like took advantage of their like wrecked emotional state, for lack of a better word, and sold them out. And so then they lost Omega. And then the third time Omega gets captured in season 3, it's like her own conscious choice, right? When she's like, she purposefully turned herself over, but she has a plan. She's confident in her abilities that she's learned through her relationship with the rest of the Bad Batch. So that's like important, right? Jack Otherstar. Oh, hi Jacob. How's it going? When Grogu got reunited with Mando, there was no emotion compared to the emotional scene of Omega seeing this. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. That's the problem with Boba Fett, right? Was that they seriously rushed that storyline. They were just like, oh, they're back. Good. Great. Now we're on to the next show. It's like Bad Batch. They took their time with the story, even though, yeah, I've been good, Jacob. I'm glad to see you on here. But just kind of like they actually, even though if you think about it percentage wise, there were a similar number of episodes between when the Bad Batch lost Omega and Mando lost Grogu, but they actually communicate effectively the amount of time that has passed between them losing, like, and showing like Tech's goggles or the additional damage on Hunter and Wrecker's armor or the tally marks on Omega's cell. They say it's been several months, probably close to a year. Like Hunter and Wrecker kind of like in a bit of despair. They're flying around aimlessly trying to find her. Like there's this, they show you how much time has elapsed, which makes the reunion between them, even though it's only technically been 3 or 4 episodes, it feels very like emotionally poignant. And it is kind of like a payoff, as opposed to Boba Fett or Mando, where it just seems like it was like a couple days, maybe like a week. It's like, yeah, he gave him to Luke. Luke took off, and then he was like, actually, I'm going to go back on that decision. Hey, Grogu, come back with me. And then it's just like random. It's just like, oh, okay, they're back together, and then that's the rest of the show. They just go around flying around. It's just like, it just feels, it feels lame, right? Because there was somewhat of an emotional payoff at the end of Mando season 2 that they immediately undid. And that was my concern, actually, after Bad Batch season 2 ended, was, are they going to just...
Yeah, that was the biggest mistake that they could have done with Mando.
I agree, yeah. It's like they just threw away all the storytelling potential that they had, and the Bad Batch doesn't do that. This thing, they took advantage of almost all the storytelling potential that they had with the characters and the story they were telling, right? So it's like the fact that, yeah, they got Omega back, but it was also kind of surprising, right? Because what did you think of that, Braden? Were you expecting her to be the one to get back to them? Was that kind of surprising to you?
No, not at all. I wasn't. Well, she was kind of trapped in there. I felt like we'd have to do something in this genre of what happened with. I don't think the Bad Batch were going to break into this like heavily fortified military base. I saw Omega doing stuff, and I see Crosshair just there, just sitting in his cell the entire time. I'm like, yeah, I think Omega's going to get out of here. And I would say, majorly surprised because we found Omega to be capable, but it was something a bit different from what we're used to getting. Usually,
exactly, yeah.
So it storms the castle and it works out great.
Yeah, you're expected to be like they go in and save her. Like that's what people thought the end of season 2 was going to be. They were like, we're going to go on this mission. We're going to get the intel from Hemlock's ship or whatever. We're going to track him. We're going to save Crosshair. It's going to be great. And then Tech died and Omega got captured. It's like, oh shit, okay. Nope, that went terribly wrong. And so then they have to rebuild themselves and regroup and accept their losses. But there's like, yeah, there's a sense of realism to it, and yeah, Omega doesn't just magically reunite. It's like but I like the fact that when she escapes, it's not exactly triumphant. It's actually kind of eerie, because it's like now Hemlock knows what, like, that she has even more value to him now, that he knows about her blood and how it,
he's gonna get her back, and he's
yeah.
gonna get her back.
So he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get her back. I'm gonna send like my guys to every corner of the galaxy to get her back. And so then you're like, okay, so she escaped, but only because they let her, and also because they realized her true importance. So she kind of almost, it's like they escaped, they lived to fight another day, but also it's like they're in even more danger than they were before. It's not like, okay, yep. You like how Tech's death wasn't foreshadowed, unlike Kanan. Felt a lot more real in that sense and added stakes. Anyone could die at any moment. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like that's kind of that's something I liked about it too. Is that that I like about the ending of season 2 especially is that the 2-part arc, like, of the finale, right, is the first part of it. It's kind of like standard fare. If you remember, it's just kind of they break in.
Yeah.
They gotta get the tracker on the ship and find out where Hemlock's going, and they're kind of joking around with each other. It seems pretty normal. And then Saw Gerrera kind of screws everything up, and they're trapped. And then I think I remember at the end of that first part of that finale, I was like, this feels different. Like, this feels serious. They're in a bad spot. And the fact that, like, yeah, at the beginning of the very next episode, Tech just like dies suddenly, and you're like, oh my God. Whoa, okay, yeah, he's gone. And the fact that, yeah, it's treated with weight because he doesn't come back. He just magically walk in a room. He's like, oh, of course I'm alive. I'm smart. I thought it was obvious. I'm fine. It's like, no, like he's dead. He died. He gave his life to save them. And the fact that they get to live on makes his sacrifice more powerful because he did die to save them and they do end up living. Because that's the thing. When people were like, oh, I wanted them all to die on Tantus and go in and get killed. And it's like, would that not undermine Tech's sacrifice? Would that not take the power out of it if they all just died anyway? Because he died so they could live.
Yeah.
So, they kind of needed to live at the end of it, right? That's what, he wanted them to live on, and that's what they do. And they respect his... Hunter tells Omega, I'm pretty sure, at the end of season 2. He's like, yeah, we're going to... Tech made a sacrifice. We're not going to waste it. And they don't. They get to live their life. They fight for their freedom. And, I saw something somewhere that was like, at the end when they're all sitting together and they're like, we can choose to be whatever we want. It's like, Tech would be pretty proud of this. He'd be happy if he got to see this. Oh, Ian, you're back. How's it going?
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
We were just talking about how Tech's sacrifice was meaningful. And, Jack here in the chat made a good point that it wasn't foreshadowed. It wasn't made obvious. It felt very sudden. And it did add to the stakes. Because that's the thing. Is like when you get to the final couple episodes and they're breaking into the Imperial base to get the coordinates to Tantus, or they're actually entering Tantus and Hemlock's like, shoot them down, or he's sending out his operatives to go get them. It's like there is a sense of severity to it because it does feel like they could die. Like, you're like, oh my God. Like when Hunter gets like crushed by some piece of metal or something, I was like, oh my God. Like what's happening right now? Like it's like... And the fact that even like the music too, I didn't talk a lot about the music. Love the freaking score. The Kiners killed it. It's so great. The fact that when in every moment of like severity, I guess for lack of a better word, they use the motif when Tech died. The fact that when the assassin, what's it, CX2, I guess the operative, he shoots the bombs onto the Marauder and blows it up, and they lose their ship and Wrecker's like taken out of it. They play that music there. They play it when they're in the midst of battle at the end with the operatives, when they're all like getting beaten down, or when Crosshair says Clone Force 99 died with Tech. All these moments of like severity that remind us of Tech's loss, they use that same theme, which is the inverted Bad Batch theme.
They're like intentional with the music placement too.
Yeah.
And they were intentional with Tech's death in a way because they knew like how that would, affect the story, affect the characters. And I don't know why everybody wanted all the characters to die at the end. I thought that was like
exactly.
weird.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. How like if they all died, it would have invalidated Tech's sacrifice. It would have like taken the power out of it.
100%. And I don't understand, like, maybe that's the thing after Infinity War, that like people want characters to die now because it like expresses a deeper meaning. But I think the deeper meaning is like the pursuit of life despite hardship. You keep going, you keep trying, and it reminds you, it wakes you up. Just like it does in real life, and I've experienced that. It's just like it wakes you up to, connect more with your family and do more and do all this. But like I don't know why people want a bunch of characters to die. I'm glad the characters didn't die. I think that was more poignant than because they got to actually choose what they wanted to do, and now they get to live a life.
Because if they did get to die, or no, if they did get to die, if they did die and they didn't make it out, then it's like, what's the message of the show? Like if you fight tooth and nail for your freedom to have freedom of choice in this corrupt galaxy, then you just die and lose everything. Like, what's the message then? What's the point of the show? What's it about? It's like everyone dies. Like, I don't know. Like, what the fuck is the point of that?
There's like no purpose because it's like, I don't know. You never get to see the characters be anything more than like fighters, and you don't get to see them like be people, and that's what they want. And to see them get to be that, like, kind of, really shows that at the end of the day, everybody just wants to live and be themselves, and there's things that get in the way of that, but that's the ultimate pursuit.
It's even something that I really like is like looking back on the show in retrospect, seeing everything that was set up logically, everything that kind of was established from the beginning of the show is paid off in some way. Like even the fact that there's the second episode of the show, the first season, was them going and hanging out with Cut LaQuain, right? The farmer clone guy. And Hunter sees that, and initially he wants to send Omega away with him because he basically feels like he's not, what's the right term? Like Yeah, not worthy. Like, he doesn't know how to be a parent, and he doesn't at that point. But the point is, like, that is what he wants. And so the fact that at the end he's finally able to achieve that in some way. They're finally able to find peace like this guy and his family, right? I think that's a great kind of payoff in a sense, too. Like, I kind of forgot about that until I thought about it. Like, when I rewatched the show last year, and I was like, oh, yeah, the second episode was about, like, Hunter seeing this father figure and then trying to model that almost. Like, it's interesting. Jack, other Star. People just want Star Wars to be dark for no reason and be super edgy just for the shock factor of it. Yeah, I agree. You know, it's like, oh, just have everyone die. It's like, okay, I guess, I don't know, Rogue One, I guess, set that precedent of like, oh, everyone has to die. But it's like, why?
But, yeah, like, they did slowly kill off all the main characters from the original trilogy, and then Revenge of the Sith inherently was very dark. And then it was a repeated trend in Clone Wars that they did kill a lot of characters off randomly. Like, you'd be introduced, and by the end of the 3 or 4 little arc that you got, they died. So, I don't know. Don't get attached. But then, recently, Star Wars, Dave Filoni versus Ben Barry, nobody dies.
They've been allergic to death. Yeah, like, it's like they can't. That's the problem with these shows, these newer ones, I guess, like, obviously excluding Bad Batch and Andor from that discussion. Mando, Ahsoka, what's another one? Boba Fett, I guess, is included in that category. Every character that died in Mando has come back, other than Nick Nolte's little Ugnaught character. He's the only one that died, and they never talk about him. They never talk about him, like, ever. They talk about him once in season 3, but like Taika Waititi droid guy came back, even though it makes no sense. Who else died and came back in Mando? Was there another character? Oh, Moff Gideon, like, died 3 times and came back. He's obviously still going to come back, even though he blew up at the end of the last season like an idiot. Like, it's the problem is no one, Sabine got stabbed and survived, and, you know, it's just like everybody, no one dies ever. So it's like, why should I care? Like, why should like, that's the thing is, when you establish in, using Ahsoka as an example again, when you establish from the very first episode that a main titular character can get stabbed in the stomach with a lightsaber and walk it off in 5 minutes like it's nothing, why should I believe in the stakes of the story? Why should I believe there's any weight to it? It just feels like nothing, like colors flashing by on a screen. There's nothing to be taken away from it, like I said, but it's just like, I never feel like 2 episodes after Sabine gets stabbed and survives, she goes up against the same opponent in a lightsaber duel. And I was like, all right, they're going to be fine. Like that's the problem. It's like, remember in Star Wars when people got into a lightsaber duel, it was like, one of them is not going to make it out. Or two. Yeah. Qui-Gon died. Freaking, like, who, like, everyone, there's always someone who didn't make it out. Even in Clone Wars, right? There's like Jedi getting knocked off when Obi-Wan and Adi Gallia go up against Maul and Savage Opress. Adi Gallia gets freaking, like, stabbed in the head with the horn head, whatever. It's like like someone's gonna die. Never get over IG-11 not dying. It's the epitome of a sacrifice being undone by a character's revival. Yeah, and like, what was the point of that, Jack? Like what was the point of bringing him back? Just to be like a
familiar character, essentially.
But did he do anything in the plot? Like, he just came back at the end and was like, "Hello, I'm back." It's like, what?
Well, it was like Grogu's little machine thing that he got to be in. It was cute and all that, or whatever.
But Grogu has this little floating stroller, so why does he need the robot? Grogu's robot with arms. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he lost, and that's the thing. So he lost autonomy as a character. Like, he didn't have a personality.
More toys.
Yeah, more toys. But then at the end, I guess they implied that he was back in some form. Like, he had. It feels weird saying like mental capacity in relation to a robot, but like, yeah, he regained some of his old mental state, I guess, like his old personality. But I don't know how that's possible because he blew up. But he's fine now. Like, that's the problem. Like, nobody dies. Like I just can't. Like, yeah, like I can't really buy into the stakes of these stories anymore. Like these other Star Wars shows, because yeah, like there is no believability. Like, and even like the fact that the only, like, if we think about the Ahsoka show again in retrospect, the only significant thing that happened in that entire show was at the end when Thrawn got away. He made it back to the regular galaxy or whatever. And it's meant to be this very scary concept that this brilliant war tactician has returned and will wreak havoc on the governmental system or whatever. And it's like, okay, why should I be worried? Because Thrawn is freaking dumb. Like, why should I be worried that he's coming back? Because he can't come up with a coherent plan. Like, so, okay, he sucks. The Republic also sucks. They're idiots because they, like, whatever. What did they do? They didn't monitor Hera's activities as a general, and she, like, disobeyed orders, and then they're, like, holding trial for no reason. Like, they're just idiots. Like, so stupid, the Republic. The show ends on a high... Oh, yeah, you're right. It ends on a high note. You're right, Jack, where it's like, they're like, Ezra's where he needs to be now. And it's like, no, you failed. You failed your mission. Because you suck. And Sabine, like, screwed over everybody and made a really selfish choice, and no one's calling her out for it. That's the problem, right? It's like the severity of the actions of the characters aren't treated with the weight they should be. Ian, you kind of missed out on this part of the conversation, but we were talking about how in Ahsoka, when Sabine makes this really selfish and kind of important character choice of screwing over the galaxy to save Ezra by giving whatever the hell is it, Ray Stevenson the map to this other galaxy, and endangers everyone by letting Thrawn return.
Right.
They never have a conversation about it. There's never a scene where Ezra's like, "Why did you do this? What's going on?" Like, there's not. They have no conversation. Like, every time he's like, "So how'd you get here?" She's like, "We'll talk about it later. Don't worry, it's fine." And they never talk about it. Like, it's never actually a point of conversation. It's like, why? And then when Sabine says, "Oh yeah, sorry, Ahsoka, that I screwed over the entire galaxy," Ahsoka's like, "It's okay. I've made a fair amount of bad decisions," or something. It's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, she literally, like, screwed over everybody, and no one's gonna call her out on it. Imagine if they have Hera tell Ezra Sabine's choice to give. Oh my god, yeah, imagine that. It's just like, what is? Yeah, that would be so funny if she. It's like, why? What? There's no conflict, right? But then, sorry, Ian, what were you saying? What were you saying there, Ian?
Aspect of...
Oh, glitched out.
Sorry, it's cutting out. My bad.
Well, I'll just let you go. Take it away.
It's like a rushed aspect of forgiveness. It sounds like, well, in Bad Batch, there's like a, like an actual, like, thought out, well developed, like, level of forgiveness. It doesn't happen like immediately. It's just like the actual, like, how immediate the situation is. They take back Crosshair right away, but that whole process of him rekindling.
There's a long healing process. Yeah. They can't, like, well, and the thing is too, I'll correct you on that, Ian, because you didn't watch the show. What I'm saying is, in Ahsoka, there is no forgiveness. They just, there's never even an acknowledgement on any level that the choice Sabine made was bad. There's never acknowledgement that Sabine made a selfish, careless decision that will harm a lot of people, including those she cares about, to get back this one person. And Ezra or Ahsoka, full well knowing what she did, says, "Oh, it's all good. Don't worry about it." Ezra never actually finds out, to our knowledge. She just lies to him the whole time and says they'll talk about it later, and they never do. So what I'm saying is that Sabine made a choice that actually potentially could screw over everybody on a galactic level, and they never call her out on that. Crosshair, on the other hand, has done a lot of small, terrible things, like torching civilians and, trying to kill his family. And he's done a lot of messed up stuff that's more, like, important personally to them. Yet they have more trouble accepting him back and forgiving him than Ahsoka did Sabine. That makes no sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not treated with realism. Like, that's why Ahsoka just feels like a fake show. Like, it doesn't even feel like a show. It's like this weird, like, I'd say soap opera, but it's not even that well written. It's just like, there's no, like, there is no conflict. They don't, like, the characters, like, that's the thing. I saw people saying that the guy who plays Ezra, Iman Esfandi, is actually good casting. I'll agree with that on the surface level, that I think Iman Esfandi kind of captures his mannerisms and personality pretty well. But Ezra as a character has no agency. He has no agency as a character in that show, because he's just there. He's like, "Oh, so you guys are, like, gonna go back to the other galaxy? Okay, yeah, sure, I'll come along with you. Hey, Sabine, how did you get here? Why did you come here?" There's never a moment like that. He's just like, All right, let's go. I'm just a jovial, fun guy.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a cardboard cutout of a character in the show, and with Bad Batch, it's a lot more grounded and actual human, which is strange to think because Ahsoka is live action, but none of the characters are like real, especially with Sabine, the intro with like the cyberpunk motorcycle.
Oh God, yeah, that was so stupid.
And then like Hera, and like all the different characters have no emotion, especially Ahsoka herself. Whereas in Bad Batch, each one of the characters is a lot more fleshed out, and it's strange to think that out of like our past 4 years of shows that we've had from Star Wars, Bad Batch, Andor, and like the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian are the best ones, and not the Ahsoka show or the Kenobi show or the Boba Fett show or any of the other shows.
Yeah.
Right.
Ezra's a plot device more than a character, which is insane considering he was the main character at one point. Yeah, you're right. It's just, yeah, he's not a character. But I want to circle back to that, Braden. What is it about first 2 seasons of Mando that you think is so good? I'm curious because I don't share that opinion.
It was, first off, I didn't even see the first season when it came out. I think like a year later, but I remember it was a big event thing. It was the actual quality of the show. When you see it, it's just a lot more Star Wars, which we hadn't gotten before that, because it was just the movies, and then it was just very novel to have a lot of Star Wars, and I actually got invested in like Grogu and Din Djarin and this mystery and these characters and this cast, and it like took its time, slowly build up. You know, like season 2, a bit more like they're both on the same level for me, 1 and 2, with even though it's like go to this planet, do this thing, and just figure out, create this bond between Din Djarin and Grogu, and it had a nice connective tissue, and then also adding a bit more stars. It was just really nice to just see all this Star Wars stuff that's just been in the background, just pushed into like a mainstream show that actually works, that actually had good character motivations and characters, and a slow build where you like only see Mando's face at the final episode. In season 2, you get a bit more of like his identity and like what does it mean, or what are you willing to sacrifice for family? Sort of similar themes of Bad Batch, and then season 2, like the perfect ending, it's done. You get a nice cameo, like it all worked out. Grogu's gone. We have to actually do the serious end, and that's pretty much the end of the show for me because I saw season 3 twice, and it just sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. But here's what I'll say, right?
Like, is with Bad Batch season 2.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying? I interrupted you.
Oh, all right. Let's try to hear what you said. But originally when I saw Bad Batch season 2 and Mando season 3, I said they were like on the same level, like a 6.5, like right there. And then the next time that I talked to you, Mando had dropped a full like 2.5 points. It was down to like a 4, and now it's like down to 2.53. Massive, just dropped. And Bad Batch season 2 is still like the 6.5 range of just like I enjoy that show. And that's been sort of all the Star Wars shows that I watch, even if they're flashy in the moment, especially with like, I think it was Ahsoka episode 5 or whatever, with like the Darth Vader and Hayden Christensen return, and everybody's like, this is the greatest shot in Star Wars and all that.
Oh,
and I was there for it. It was cool. But at the end of the day, Ahsoka was like a 5 out of 10, just like, ooh, this ain't too great.
Yeah.
Show, but I don't know, I got enjoyment from Mando with similar stuff to what I get for the Bad Batch, but like, I feel like it clumped together a bunch of the stuff that I like in the Bad Batch, but it like confined it in this live action show, and it crumpled together the episodes, and it just worked episode to episode a lot better for me for those 2 seasons.
Okay, so what I'm just interested in is like, so you specified there that it was live action. Is that why you prefer Mando?
No. Well, I told you that when we were going over Bad Batch season 2 and Mando season 3, I said that I did prefer live action Star Wars because I just prefer when they could get it better. I never really got into Clone Wars or Rebels or Bad Batch or any of the animated or Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Jedi nearly as much as I got into like Visions with his experimental animation style or just live action Star Wars, because in general I prefer live action Star Wars. It adds the stakes, it adds just grounded, and it's probably a bit of a hot take, but I don't love the animation style that we've had for all these Star Wars shows.
Fair enough.
I've never absolutely loved it like some people, and it's not really good at this point, but
Yeah. Well, I just like I.
Pulled a bit of the way there for me, but the live action thing with Mando.
No, I was just saying that, like, I think the thing about Mando for me is like I can't really look back at the first two seasons as if they're like this isolated thing, right? Like I can't go back and be like, okay, here they are in a vacuum. It's this nice little story. It's like, no, they fucked it up. Like that's the problem. They were like, okay, they're immediately back together, and then season 3 sucked, and Boba Fett sucked, and it's like, okay, so they're more concerned with making it a Marvel connected universe storyline than actually telling a story. The thing about Bad Batch is I can look back at season 1 and season 2 and pick up on these subtleties, like Hunter's relationship with Cut McClane, what's his name? Cut LaQuain, whatever the hell his name is, the farmer clone, how he acted as a model for the father figure Hunter could become and provided the ideal life that Hunter wanted to provide for Omega. There's details like that I can look back on and appreciate more. There's nothing like that in Mando. I can't really do that. I can't look back and be like, oh, wow, that was great, because it doesn't feel like a story. It doesn't feel like a consistent, well thought out story. It feels like a product on an assembly line that was more concerned with setting up other crap than it was telling a story. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem with Mando. And I don't even, like, just looking back on the first two seasons in general, I don't think they're that well written. I don't think they're that well done. I think what you said is true, that there was this craving for Star Wars content at the time, I guess, that wasn't like the terrible sequel movies or whatever. And they wanted to, like, I guess it kind of felt unique in some sense that it's a bit of a Western. I remember, Ian, you said that to me at the time, right? Was it felt kind of fresh, like a Western take on the whole thing. And it made it feel unique on a superficial, like,
had that little level of like luminous suspense to it.
Yeah, like it felt unique and fresh on a superficial level, I think. But I as time has gone on, I've looked back and we've had well thought out, because the sequels set such a low bar, right? Like, say what you will, sequels were not well planned out. I'm not even like one of these people that's going to go on a million-hour tangent about how terrible the sequels are. Like, everyone acknowledges their problems. They were poorly thought out movies. I can rewatch them and whatever. Like, I just don't really care about them. But the point is that they set such a low bar, like, of quality. So people, we're willing to accept lesser quality. And I think that's why people liked Mando at the time. But I think more and more people are looking back and realizing this doesn't hold up. Because I did, and I don't think it holds up at all.
I would say for the sequels, Mando, it wasn't as extreme, but it definitely had a lack of planning, where Bad Batch had this fresh, solid 3-season thing. And Mando, the first 2 seasons I could say have that. It is definitely the obvious. Season 1, you could not know what Star Wars is and still get enjoyment from it. And season 2 is very ingrained in like Star Wars and Clone Wars and Rebels and all those. I don't think it had Rebels, but a lot of that sort of stuff. And then season 3 just dropped off, and it didn't deliver the way that Bad Batch season did, with the slow build of stuff getting better, where Mando was just a massive off the cliff for the rest of it.
Right. Well, I think, to be honest, like, I'll provide a counter to that. I think that Mando seasons 1 and 2 have a lot of the same problems as season 3, but people just noticed them more because you know what happened in between Mando season 2 and 3? Andor. People watched Andor and realized that whatever creative minds at Lucasfilm were capable of competent writing, and then they were like, oh, maybe let's raise our standards a little bit from like the floor. Let's like raise them pretty high up here. Let's actually change our perspective on media. Let's like try harder. And so Mando season 3 seemed like such a drop off because a lot of people didn't rewatch Mando. It's another one of these shows that I would describe as like cinematic fast food or television fast food, where it's like you eat it and then you forget about it 2 seconds later. So I feel about Mando now. It's like I kind of forgot about the first 2 seasons when season 3 came around, and then it felt like such a drop off in quality, such a major drop off a cliff. But I don't think it was. I think that it has a lot of the same problems, because I'm just curious, Braden, to hear your, I guess I don't want to say your defense, but your perspective on what is the difference between Mando and Bad Batch in the sense that they have this episodic structure of going on missions, helping Omega or whatever in this, like, okay, Omega gets into trouble, they have to save her. Grogu gets into trouble, Mando has to save her. My argument is that Grogu isn't a character and Omega is an actual character, because Grogu's a toy. He's not. He has no agency. Omega has agency, and she does grow and change. And every time the Bad Batch go on these missions, there's something to be taken away from it. Like, let's take episode 9 of season 2, for example. Omega has that very important conversation with Tech, where he, you know, kind of finally opens up a little bit and gives his perspective on life and how he processes things differently than everyone else. And it may seem like he's cold and emotionless, but he does care, and that's proven at the end of the season. That's why I'd argue episodes like that are important in the narrative. Mando has a lot of episodes on a superficial level that seem similar, but they don't really do a lot for character. I can't really isolate any episodes of Mando that people would call filler or episodic, whatever, monster of the week. Is that what people call it? Like those kind of episodes. I can't think of any of those off the top of my head that really enhanced Mando as a character. Because as a character, I don't think Mando's that interesting. Like, does anyone else agree with me? Like, Mando's nobody. He's just a dude. And I don't really understand what his value set is, because they contradict it all the time. He doesn't like droids. He does like droids. He believes in the way, and then he doesn't. Then he does. Like, I don't know anything about Mando. I don't understand who he is. What was that, Ian? You say something? I feel like we're glitching out. Ian, are you alive?
Oh, sorry.
You said something. I wanted to hear you.
What was I saying? So I was cutting out a lot.
Yeah, it's getting real glitchy on my end.
Oh yeah, no, I guess after season 1, I wasn't sure about like what Mando's like, what his goal was after season 1, after like helping out Grogu. That was kind of his whole character, and you know, so you would gain more info about his childhood and who he is as a person and what he wants. But as the Mandalorian thing, the whole thing is they can't talk. So I thought season 1 was fine, but then when they kept on trying to add and add and add, while also like not having a lot of actual value there, it was like, oh, okay. And
There was no
season
substance.
3 is like not that great because there's not a lot they built up to do with his character in the first place.
Yeah, like that's the thing is, like, I think what Braden said a little bit earlier, he's left for a second, but he said there's a mystery. That's what he said, right, Braden? There's a mystery surrounding Grogu and this and that was kind of intriguing at first. But I think that's kind of the problem with Mando, is that it, for lack of a better word, I feel like I was just saying, Braden, that you said earlier that there's an element of mystery to Mando that carried it for most of the first season. And I think that that's kind of one of my issues with the show, is that it's the same with, to be honest, Boba Fett and Ahsoka as well, is that they just hide behind this veil of vagary. Like, I feel like I just made up a word. Is that a word? I made that up. Like this like fake sheen of mystery about everything. They're just kind of like, okay, there's this, oh, who is Grogu? Where did he come from? He got saved from the Jedi Temple. Vague background. Mando, I never really saw how, like, okay, they have a couple flashbacks to him, like, in his home and how his family got killed by droids or whatever. And so there was like that one element of his character that they kind of kept consistent in the first season, was his distaste towards droids because of what they did to him as a child. That's what I mean is I never really see how Mando's experiences as a child or when he was younger, how do those experiences like inform his decisions later in life as the character we see now? We never see that, really. They show that with the droids and how he kind of forms this bond with Taika Waititi, droid guy. But then, like, they keep flip-flopping on it. Like in Boba Fett or Mando season 2, he shows up and I forget, Amy Sedaris says some line like, oh, I guess he likes droids now. Then season 3 rolls around and suddenly he hates droids again. Like he and Bo-Katan go to the droid bar and he's like, I'm going to scrap you for parts if you don't give me information. And it's like, so what are your beliefs, dude? Like, I don't understand you. Like they keep contradicting these aspects of his character that don't make, like, just like, okay, like he's not really that interesting to me. Like it seemed like he was this kind of self-insert character almost, where he's just kind of this, you can project yourself onto this blank canvas of a character. But then like all of his decisions, all of his beliefs are challenged. Like that's the one kind of strong-ish part of his arc, is the end of season 2 when he takes off the helmet and gives up his beliefs to save the child that he cares about. But then he immediately backtracks on that decision in Boba Fett and Mando season 3. So he didn't, like, his arc wasn't anything. It didn't matter. Like, this thing is, like, when I compare that to Bad Batch, characters like Crosshair or Omega, you can see how their life, like preceding who they are in the show, is informing their decisions now. And there's a gradual growth and progression that makes sense. That doesn't really happen with Mando. Like, you know what I mean? I don't really know who he is.
Right. Well, with Din Djarin, with the droids thing, and then also his character arc, all this stuff in season 1 and 2 was pretty consistent with, like, season 1, he doesn't like droids. Season 2, he's learned to like droids. And then season 3 messes all that up. And then, not to just pin everything on season 3, but inherently, if it's a Western, your main character is very, like, they don't show emotion. He's very just, like, Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, just sort of doesn't show emotion, gets the job done, bounty hunter, and he's cool, sort of like Boba Fett. And then, like we figured out with Boba Fett, when you flesh him out, if you do a bad job, it can really mess up the character. And then with Din Djarin, the fleshing out, we didn't really get any flesh out with him, and we never have. And that's kind of okay inherently for his character. I don't really need more than I've already gotten from the first 2 seasons. But what happened with Boba Fett, even I was fine with Boba Fett being interfered with Mando, but I didn't like the plot that we were having. And then after season 3, this is supposed to be the jumping point for, like, connecting Ahsoka, and, like, there's supposed to be the like, whatever it is, the tough girl character who got fired from it.
Oh, Gina Carano, yeah.
You know, supposed to perform and come out with this movie, and it's not it's gonna happen now, but, like, I don't think I'm not looking forward to it, and a lot of people kind of are because they just like Mando in general and stuff. But, like, it seems like everybody is throwing out their Grogu toys. So now in, like, 2023, now 2024, and it's become irrelevant, and nobody really cares at this point.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just don't really like, Ian. I don't know what you think, but I don't think that, like, I'm not trying to single you out right now, Braden. That's not my intention. But I don't think that the argument of Western protagonists are inherently emotionless is a very strong one. Like, I don't know if like Ian, you can think of examples, right, of Western protagonists that have a lot of personality and like show emotion in unique ways. That's my problem with Din Djarin as a person. Is he's like almost too reserved. Like, he doesn't have, like, Pedro Pascal's a good actor, but he doesn't get a chance to really act as Mando because half the time he isn't there. Like, there's like 2 other stunt doubles that always play him, and he just dubs the voice in, like, a booth somewhere. So he's not even really there half the time.
The voice, which is pretty generic.
And that's what it's weird how D. Bradley Baker voices the clones. Every single one of them brings, I would argue, more distinct personality to each of them individually, and he's not even actually there half the time. Whereas Pedro Pascal is sometimes playing Mando, most of the time dubbing over the lines or whatever. And
These characters.
Yeah, there's nothing to him, right, Ian? Like, I don't think there's anything to him.
Yeah, I don't think there's like, in comparison, like, there's, I think each character in the Bad Batch in a sense is, like, more like what's the word? Like, not isolated, but like, they're fleshed out.
Distinct,
and,
right?
You know, it's kind of weird that a main character isn't as fleshed out as a side character, but it's just the way they tell stories, the way they interpret, like, the writing, like, and like I said, like, the Bad Batch is very intentional in what it's trying to do. Where I think Mandalorian and other shows like that, because it's live action, are more of, like, trying to be a spectacle, but you can lose a lot of the story and a lot of, like, even just, like, the quality if you're just not focused enough on what this character is, what he wants, but also, like, you know, how are you letting the audience connect to him? I kind of felt like a connection to each and every character in the Bad Batch, like, out of that group, in a little bit, like, just a little bit of relation to each character. They all have their own traits, but they all have, like, you know, also other traits that are, like, I can see in, like, myself and other people, and it's just, like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like, if I were to rate the Bad Batch, I think there's a difference between objective, like, rating, like, how good you think it is, and enjoyment. Because everybody has their own preferences, like, genres they like more. Yeah, I like sci-fi out of everything, and there's some really bad sci-fi movies that I like. So I would say, like, with like the quality of the story and what it was trying to do and the intention, because it wasn't trying to be a big thing with spectacle, it was trying to be a little thing. I think the effectiveness of how it did it, I'll give it like an 8.5. And then how much I enjoyed it, I would say more of like a 7.5. But I don't think I watched it the right way completely. I think I got to watch it again. But I'm glad we did get to watch season 2 and 3, because I definitely missed out if I didn't watch that at all. So.
Sorry, what did you say again? I missed what you said. What rating was it?
Oh. When did I cut out?
I just didn't hear like the part when you actually said what your rating would be, like objectively and subjectively. Like I didn't hear what you said.
Oh yeah, okay. Like the actual show and the quality of it, like what it was trying to do and like how it did it, I would give it like an 8.5. And then maybe like 8.5. If I watch it again, maybe a 9. But I think 8.5. Just because it got better throughout the first season, and the first season was great, but it wasn't amazing for me. But then my actual enjoyment of it, I would say maybe more like a 7.5, 8. And I think I'm gonna continue to like it more as I continue to watch it as time goes on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, like I think that's kind of the thing, right? Is like that's what we keep going back to, is like the sense of realism that it has is like kind of unparalleled by these other shows. Because like that's the thing, is like I've seen this comparison, like we made it too, right? And this comparison of Star Wars has taken up this trend of the hardened warrior taking care of the child thing. They did it with Mando. They did it with Obi-Wan. They did it with the Bad Batch.
That with like Kenobi and Leia. That with like Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I didn't even think about that one.
And Grogu.
Yeah.
Bad Batch and Omega.
Yeah, but like what I was trying to kind of lead into that is that the Bad Batch and Omega, or in particular, the thing I want to focus on is Omega and Crosshair. That pairing, and the pairing as a whole, because like I said, each member of the Bad Batch has a distinct relationship with each other. The fact is, like, I don't think any of the other shows have been as effective at communicating that relationship in like a, not only like a successfully positive way, but also in a way that felt authentic and not manufactured and fake. Like that's my problem. Like when people say they like the dynamic between Grogu and Mando or Din Djarin or whatever, I kind of call that into question, because can someone explain to me what the dynamic is? Because Grogu's not a character. Like he's just a toy. Like so it's like Pedro Pascal or whoever's playing Mando, like playing with a doll. Like I don't know what the dynamic, because Grogu has no agency. He doesn't talk. He doesn't really do anything that affects the plot most of the time. Like he kind of did in season 1. That's why I think season 1 is marginally better than the second 2, because Grogu actually influences the plot in some ways. But like past that point, he's just a cute little doll for the audience to go, "Aw," and then he doesn't do anything. Like Omega actually has agency as a character, and she pushes the plot forward at multiple points. Like she's crucial. I never found that with Grogu. Like I don't think he was that important.
I'd agree with Ian that the show overall is better than the actual entertainment value of it, because especially with the given plot and how it's like the 20-minute episodes and how spread out is with like 12, well, how many, 15 episodes? Yeah, for each season with all of it.
Yeah.
It is a lot better as a complete chunk of a unit than it is individually, like week to week, enjoying the episodes, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I kind of like, it's, yeah, it's like going back to the idea of these weird varying lengths in the TV shows. And I have a problem with these weird short shows. Like, don't even, like, they feel like these weird squeezed stories that should probably be a movie or like a trilogy or something else that isn't a show. Because it's always like these weird like Ian, we've talked about this, right? These weird, like, mandated episode lengths, or these weird, like, it doesn't make any sense. But like I don't know if I necessarily agree with Mando in the sense of like, okay, Tales of the Jedi. Yeah, you're right, Jack. That's a good point. Especially Tales of the Empire. We didn't talk about that. Did you watch that, Braden?
Yeah, I just watched that. I was gonna, for the past hour, I'm like, should I bring that up? But we've been driving Bad Batch season 3.
Well, someone brought it up. Thanks, Jack.
So,
you got a good transition.
Yeah, Tales of the Jedi, I think the first half with Ahsoka was mid, and I didn't really care. Then the next part with, like, Dooku was pretty great, actually. I liked what it did with Yaddle and stuff. But Tales of the Empire, the whole thing with Thrawn's friend and, like, Ahsoka's...
I love how you don't even remember her name. Like, I don't either.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of it. I saw you put her name in your review, and I'm like, I literally knew that I'd have to, like, copy and paste or, like, read that and, like, try to type out. Because, like, I don't even know her name, man. I don't care.
Neither do I.
She's probably my least favorite character that has been introduced in Star Wars.
Man, she's like nobody.
In the past 5 years, I do not care. She has nothing going for her, but they tried to flesh her out, and it completely failed. I care less now.
That's so funny.
My faith in Star Wars, when Tales of the Empire came out, I'm like, this is what we're doing for Star Wars Day nowadays. I'm like, we're doing this all days. And that really, no.
Yeah.
The only thing going for the show in the first half was animation is, like, really good at this point.
Yeah.
Like, as good as this animation could get, I'd say. And then we got Ferris Offee, and I was just like, whoa. We took a step up. Because I've always wondered what happened to Ferris. That's been because Clone Wars and stuff and my initial enjoyment of that. And I really did like how they, like, sent up Ferris and, like, incorporated Vader showed up, but it worked. And then, like, the Inquisitors and stuff. And
sorry, Brayden, could I, like, pause you for a second? Can I just pause you for 1 second? I just wanted to draw attention to this this chat here from Jack Otherstar. Dude, I hate it too. It's so dumb how Thrawn's crowning achievement, I'm assuming that's what you're referencing, how Thrawn's crowning achievement is done by someone else. You're so right. You're so right. Ian, you got to go? Oh, okay, sorry, dude. Well, we'll talk to you later, all right? Thanks for joining in. But no, the fact that, yeah, Thrawn's the TIE Defender, right? That's what it is. Thrawn created the TIE Defender project, and like that's his whole deal. Is he's like he wants funding for it, and Tarkin's whole deal in all these shows is just dealing with funding. He's dealing with stupid Project Stardust and Hemlock and Tantus and all this, and he's like, oh, dude, I'm so sick of diverting all my funding. I just want it for the Death Star. But the fact is that Thrawn believes that the TIE Defender is legitimately a superior investment to the Death Star, because it's like this refined starfighter in every way. It has hyperspace capabilities. Like, it's just better in every conceivable way. And the fact that Tales of the Empire strongly suggests that Morgan created that and Thrawn just took her idea, that's so stupid. I hate that. Can we, like, because now they're retroactively trying to, like, can we just have the smartest character in Star Wars have a good idea? It's like, no, we have to make it so that every good idea he has was made up by someone. They kind of already did that, actually, with the books. I don't mind this as much personally, but the Marg Sable maneuver that Thrawn created in the Legends timeline in the Heir to the Empire series, they wrote, Timothy Zahn wrote in the new books in Thrawn Alliances that he actually got the idea for that maneuver from Ahsoka because she used it during the Clone Wars. So they keep changing this. They keep, like, saying that all the good ideas Thrawn had were ideas he stole from other people. And it's so stupid.
Yeah, it was quite frustrating. I saw that Thrawn showed up there, and I didn't fully get the, like, tie thing, and I was trying to figure it out, but it was sort of like random. It's like, we can't put Thrawn in here now, so we're going to put Thrawn in here now. Whereas, like, Vader showed up. It's like, yeah, Vader's been showing up forever, but they just put him in there because they couldn't see him. And they give him a piece so that we could enjoy Morgan more, but
like, the thing I don't understand is, like, so Thrawn is this guy, right? He always kind of, sorry for interrupting you, but, like, the idea with Thrawn, right, is he's like, he more so, like, he doesn't really have, like, emotional attachments in the traditional sense. He forms attachments in the way that they're useful to him, the way that they benefit kind of his greater goals of protecting his people, right? And so the fact that he recruits Morgan It's so weird to me because what does he see in this lady that's useful? He came up with the idea for the TIE Defender that he actually came up with, but okay, so that's great. But aside from this, the schematics she's made up for the Starfighter, what, Jackie got to head out. All right, well, thanks, man. I appreciate your insight and adding some points to the discussion here. But yeah, talk to you later. But yeah, like, I don't know why he thinks Morgan's a valuable asset. Why does he think she's useful in any way? He's just like, oh, she's like, bro, I'm really angry. And he's like, great, you're hired. Like, I don't understand the point of that.
I guess Ron is like going through the bottom of the barrel ranks. She's like, isn't really good with me. And she's like, I'm going to find whoever I can. It's just like, I don't know. First half of the season, the only reason that I kept watching is because it's Star Wars, and then also because pretty much they're short. They're like inherently very short. It's like under an hour in total, and it like that was refreshing. But yeah, I think first half was like a 3.4, no 3.5 to like a 4. Second half was somewhere in the like 6 to 7 range, probably 6s. And so it all comes out at like a 5.5 for me. And it's just like, is that what we're at with Star Wars?
Yeah, it's just like, that's what it just tells me. Like, so anyway, we can go back to, if you want to give your thoughts on the Barris chunk, you can, because I kind of cut you off.
I don't know. I had a bit of curiosity with what happened to Barris, so we figured it out. It was cool. I don't know.
Right.
It's interesting. They could be like, that's Anakin, or like best friend's master, and like they. So yeah, Barris actually tried to kill this person. She like saved this person. Like how it all works out. It was very different. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Like I think that Barris, like that's the thing. Like the Barris side of the show was definitely superior to whatever the hell the other lady. But like I think that my problem with it is like, what Jack said earlier is this like how condensed it is. Because like, yeah, Barris's story was interesting, but it's like, I don't know, half an hour of story. Like there's so much lacking in like understanding, like that's the thing about Bad Batch is like you have 3 seasons to develop these characters and their relationship and seeing how their beliefs change and evolve over time. There's never anything like that with Barris. Like they just kind of, I get the gist of it that she was disenchanted with the Jedi, the warmongers they had become in the war. And she kind of she did a reckless thing. She committed this terrorist act and she probably regrets that. Then she gets in with the Inquisitors and quickly realizes that she doesn't belong there, that she doesn't believe in what they're doing, But what's going on? The college dropped. What the fuck? Still there, Braden? That's weird. I need to fix this real quick. Whoops. Wait, I'm calling back. That was weird. We got to fix this. Braden, got to get you back on the call. That was bad. Calling you now. Okay, let's try. Oh, fuck off. What is this? Oh, internet connection. Give me a break. Come on. Okay, let's go. What is happening with the call, man? I'm trying to get this going. Call just dropped. I gotta get on there. I'm gonna call. Anakin blew up the Death Star. Thanks, Galaxy. Yeah, he did. Anakin blew up my call with my friend here. Not my words, some random. Of course. Where? Oh, come on, man. This call sucks. L. Thanks for coming. I'm really glad you came in here at like the lowest point to just like roast me. This is great. Just like taking an L right now. Why can't I get this call to work? It like my phone just did some weird shit. No, it's not working. Oh, come on. Am I just gonna talk to myself right now? So boring. It's not fun to talk to myself. Unless Galaxy, you have something to say about the Bad Batch or Star Wars in general. You have some unique perspective to offer. Yeah. Well, Braden's done. I'm done. Discord VC was acting off last night for me in Top Brick. Might be Discord thing. Yeah, it could be. I'm using Instagram though. So I don't know. Maybe it's just an internet thing. The internet all across the globe is acting out. So Ian's done, Braden's done. Well, yeah, that was a bit of a sudden end to the conversation, but yeah, I was just saying that Tales of the Empire was like kind of lame and it didn't capitalize on character potential like the Bad Batch did. But yeah. Star Wars is all right. You like the Mandalorian and Clone Wars. I agree with Clone Wars. Not so much Mando. Mando's like lower tier. You should watch the Bad Batch though. It's a good show. As you can see, I have the where am I pointing? Where am I pointing right now? There, right above me. I have it framed. The logo looks great. But yeah, haven't seen all of Clone Wars yet. How far are you into it? It gets pretty good towards the end. That's when it really kind of picks up steam. It's a bit of a slow start, I guess. Seen parts of it. Yeah, it's a good show. It's a good show. I think that it's slightly. Braden and I have talked about it. My friend who was on here a minute ago. We talked about that in the past. How it's a bit overhyped. But it's good. I like it a lot. I need to rewatch the whole thing because I did the super lazy thing several years ago and just like watched like the bare essentials of the show. And I should probably go back and binge because I've done that with the Bad Batch. I've binged through the whole thing. I haven't done that with Clone Wars, and I should to kind of revise my opinion on the overall narrative and how well kind of written and thought out it is. Because I think the Bad Batch is superior, but only on the basis that I didn't skip any episodes. Clone Wars, I did skip some episodes, so maybe I should watch it as a collective whole and form a new opinion on it. I don't know. But yeah, that was fun. That was a good conversation. I'm happy that we were able to do that finally. Because I've been trying to get these guys together. And my friends Braden and Ian, I've been trying to get them together forever. And it's like we finally got to do that. And that was very I think that was a very insightful discussion. I enjoyed that. I heard the new Star Wars show is pure. Oh, the stupid Acolyte, dude. I'm not going to watch it. I'll just say right now. If anyone wants me to review the Acolyte, not going to do it. Because I haven't even watched it. But I've just seen like some of this crap about how you can now create children with the Force or whatever. There's some dumb bullshit. I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch the Acolyte. Just post the most. Yeah, I've seen like videos of people reacting to it and reviewing it. Yeah, you can create people with the Force now, Galaxy. You can just like magically like I guess impregnate people and conceive children with the Force. You can do that now. That's a thing that can be done. Yeah. this is where we're at. It's fucking Star Wars. They're creating magic force children. I'm not making it up. You know, remember how Anakin was like super special and he was like the chosen one and it was like destiny that he was created magically? No, you can just do that now, like randomly. You can just like magically create children. Doesn't matter. It's not like a special thing that happened because of destiny and fate. It's like, no, you can just do it. It's like, whoop, there's a baby. We did it. The Force works in the Force. What's the dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. George Lucas must be proud of himself for selling Disney to Star. George Lucas is probably like face planting right now. He's probably like, what the fuck have they done? But you know what? George did what he wanted to do, right? Like, that's the thing. It's funny how people are like, oh my gosh, George Lucas needs to take it back because he was so unhappy with the sequels. And I'm like, okay, well, if George is unhappy with the sequels, then that's on him. Like, he should have realized that he sowed the seeds of the franchise's destruction long ago. Because, like, what did he think would happen when he sold it to Disney? Like, come on, man. It's not that Disney hasn't made anything good out of Star Wars, because it has, as we've talked about, because The Bad Batch is a great story, but they don't try very hard at all. At least it's funny because people, you know, Dave Filoni, that's the guy that everyone heaps the credit onto and says is the mad genius behind all the good Star Wars content, but that's a lie. That's just a flat out lie. People are wrong about that because he's actually done more damage to it, and a lot of the stuff he's had full creative control over sucks. So I don't care if he's the protege of George Lucas. He's a bad writer. Get him out of there. I don't want to see anything else that says written by Dave Filoni ever in my life. The guy's not skilled. I don't even know if George Lucas was that good a writer, to be honest, either. Like, people have said he's a good ideas man. I think that's a good way to put it. You know, he could conceptualize things. He's good at world building. I don't think he's good at writing scripts. You know? Skill issue. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It just matters on like what matters is like people's competence and their ability to write good stories. Like, that's all it comes down to. That's the thing. Like, I don't like all I care about is good storytelling, and I'll call it out when I see it. When I see bad storytelling, I'll also call that out because that's what Star Wars has been mostly, especially. But why it's weird to say that live action is a bad is like a bad medium of this franchise now. But it's true. Because the only good live action Star Wars anything in the past like decade has been Andor. And you know, well, I guess it's not true, right? Because there was like Solo and Rogue One and they were okay. But like, generally speaking, as far as the TV show medium is concerned, Andor was the only good one. And the animated series have been way better. Even ones that are bad, like Tales of the Empire or whatever. It's like, okay. It's just like you can pick and choose this thing. It's like it's unfortunate that Star Wars has become like a vending machine kind of thing. Like they're operating on a vending machine model of like, you know, there's so much stuff that you can consume and you can just choose what you want to. Like it's kind of like, you know, it used to be a special thing and now I think people care less. If there's a new Star Wars movie or a show. I guess the thing is like, I remember when The Force Awakens came out. It was like a decade ago. I remember that was hyped up. I remember that was exciting when you went to go see a Star Wars movie because it was like a special thing. There was like one a year and it was like, we're going to see Star Wars. Let's do it. And regardless of the movie's quality, it was a cool thing. Now with how oversaturated it's become with all the TV shows and crap, I think that the next time there's a Star Wars movie, which is going to be the stupid Mando Grogu movie, which is going to be shit. But putting that aside, I don't think anyone's going to be excited when that comes out. When the Lego Star Wars DVD movies are better than the actual Star Wars media that comes out today, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's better than like 90. What's the one? I have it over here, actually. The Han Solo thing. This one. I got this. Or no, it's not Han Solo. It's this. The Padawan Menace. Remember this gem? This is better than Ahsoka, the show. It's better. Like, I'm sorry. It just is. It's better in every way. The Padawan Menace. Better. It's better than Ahsoka and The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. And the sequel trilogy movies. When you realize that the spoof like holiday specials that they released on Disney Plus are actually better than the entire trilogy of films that they made, that's a problem. Because those are funny. I don't know if you watched those, but those are funny. The summer vacation one where they just had Boba Fett just flies in and his theme starts playing, and it was like fucking hilarious. That was great. Actually, any Lego direct-to-home DVD is better than whatever crap the movie industry makes now. You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong. It's just garbage. It's all garbage, right? It's just like they're all falling victim to the same thing. It's funny because I've talked about this before, but Star Wars is now trying to copy the Marvel model of producing content where you just kind of churn out a million things and every new product sets up the next one and so on. But then Marvel kind of realized that's a bad strategy. Or actually, I don't know if they have realized it because they're still doing it, but the reception of the MCU franchise, at least that's what I'm kind of referring to when I say Marvel, not all encompassing like Spider-Verse and stuff in that. But the Marvel franchise, the MCU franchise, has dropped in critical and audience reception because people are sick of the same old shit. And the problem with Star Wars is that they're trying to do the same thing. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, they're trying to create the Mandalorian verse, and it's like a bad copy of Marvel, which was already not very good, but it's like it's a bad model for storytelling. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's like not interesting to me when it's like everything's like, oh wow, it's the Avengers team up with Boba Fett. It's like, okay, who cares? The MCU ruined everything. Everything needs an expanded universe, all sorts of crap. Yeah, it's true, right? It's like Star Wars. Like, I don't like the Bad Batch, for example. The Bad Batch. There we go. Look at that. The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch is a good example of a contained story that works in isolation, but also can be viewed as a part of like the Star Wars universe, right? But it's not like a bad product on an assembly line kind of thing, which is what we're talking about, right? Which is just like a bunch of crap. It's like, let's shove everything in, just like, okay. The cameo thing is especially a problem where it's just like shoving in every possible character under the sun, regardless if their purpose in the story is meaningful in any way. So like, honestly, even the Bad Batch is guilty of that. As much as I love the show, there's like one episode in season 3 where Asajj Ventress shows up for no reason and she's not relevant to the story, and she's just like, hello, I'm here to say a bunch of weird dialogue, and then leaves and never comes back. I was like, what was the point of that? That just like substanceless fan service? Like, I'm so sick of the term fan service being used in like reference to stuff that doesn't service the fans. Like, what does that mean, fan service? What does that term mean? It's kind of lost all meaning at this point. Your extended universes were all the Lego themes being connected. That was my MCU. Yeah, no joke, dude. When they had, I remember that, the good old days. When freaking my MCU connected universe moment was in Ninjago. Like, was it season 1? What was the season with the snakes, the serpentine? Was that season 1 or season 2? I don't remember. Whatever that one was, when they're like, we've got to get the Fang blades together, and then Cole references Clutch Powers or whatever. He's like, well, yeah, this guy Clutch Powers found it, and I was like the biggest fan of that old Clutch Powers movie. I was like, whoa, they referenced Clutch Powers in Ninjago. Like, that was my, like, I don't know, Nick Fury showing up at the end of Iron Man moment as a kid. For me, that was that. Like, the name drop of Clutch Powers in Ninjago was my like Avengers thing. I was like, that was cool. But then they actually turned Clutch Powers into a character in the show, and he was stupid. Like, I don't know what that was about, where he had an eye patch for no reason, and he was just like a moron. It kind of ruined Clutch Powers, to be honest. If anyone cared about Clutch Powers as a character, I don't know if anyone does, but Clutch Powers is an idiot. It did him dirty. Yeah, like, I didn't even know what his whole deal was. Like, doesn't he betray them at a certain point, too? Like, he, like, turns on them or turns them into the bad guys? I don't even remember that. But we gotta figure, but at what cost? Exactly. It's like, what did it cost? Everything. That's what it cost. Guess he's mad he never got a second movie. It could be it. I don't know. The last time I trusted a studio, I lost an eye. That's what happened to Clutch Powers. But didn't he actually like still have his eye? Like he had a fake eye patch, even though he didn't have a missing eye. I remember that on the Lego figure where it was like he had a face where the eye patch was flipped up, and he's like, "I still have an eye under here." Like, what was that about? I don't know. Ninjago is another kind of example, to be honest, of the universe formula trend, like really messing up stories. Like, because they had a good story with like the first 10 seasons, like what I'm talking about, like a good contained story with a conclusive ending. Say what you will about the March of the Oni, but that was a good ending, man. Like, that was good. Like the way that they wrapped it up with the tornado of creation, harkening back to the first season, and kind of the ultimate forces of creation opposing the forces of destruction. That was satisfying to me. But then they were like, we got to bring everyone back. They had Harumi come back, and she was evil again, or whatever. Like, that made no sense. And it was just because like it felt like they were trying, like, even the fact that the poster was a ripoff of like the Endgame. Like, they were literally trying to do the Avengers, but in Ninjago. It was fine, but Omega was just very powerful because, yes. Yeah, I agree. It's funny because we were just talking about the Bad Batch, and there's the kid is called Omega. So, like, when you said that, my brain was confused that there's the Omega Oni, and then there's Omega, the character in Star Wars. I was like, what's going on? Crystallized was garbage. That was a disgrace to the series. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like, what was I didn't even watch the full season. Like, my friend and I watched like one episode of that. We were like, this sucks so much. Like, what is it's like just so much, like, like all the life has been drained out of it. There was like no payoff to any of it. It was just like, here's a bunch of garbage. Thanks, guys. As a person, like, honestly, yeah, like, as a person who grew up with the original show, I already didn't like the new seasons, like post March of the Oni, but like that really rubbed me the wrong way when they had like Harumi was just fucking evil for no reason. And I don't know, the Overlord, he'll never die. I guess, like, the Overlord, it's like Palpatine when he's just like, I've died before. It's like, okay, I guess the Overlord was always lame. Can we agree on that? Like he was just like a weird ball in the sky. Like, who the like, the Overlord was dumb. Okay, the Overlord sucked. And then they brought him back, and he was like, he had a deeper voice, and he died again, but he'll probably come back again, right? And like the next time they want to have him come back and be a villain, like, I don't know. Nia is back, Samurai X again, Ultra Dragon, Loki, Harumi, and light fan service. Overlord barely had a character, and they barely tried. I agree. It's just like, okay, what was the point of this, actually? Like, what was have you seen that new show? Because I didn't. The one that's like a spin-off kind of. C-Bound was a good season. Yeah. It was just like, okay. I didn't really like C-Bound that much, but like the ending was kind of interesting. It's like we were talking about with the Bad Batch, right? Earlier. We talked about how the character Tech in that show, he gives his life at the end of the second season. And it's a moment treated with a lot of weight and like emotional impact. And all throughout season 3, everyone was like, are they going to bring him back? Is he going to come back as a stupid resurrected zombie brainwashed assassin or something? And it was like, no, he actually died. And like his sacrifice was meaningful, and he's gone. for good. And it's like, wow, that's so refreshing especially after Ninjago did that with Zane and Nia and like every character. I couldn't believe that, honestly, for once, that like a character died and stayed dead, especially within Star Wars, which is a franchise where nobody dies anymore. But yeah, like when I saw that like Nia came back like instantly, I was like, that's dumb, dude. Like, what? No one dies, right? Dragon's Rising is okay at most, but I want them to do more with the dragon characters. It's just the same stuff over. Yeah. It's just like, what's the point? It's just like, it's just nothing. Like, there's no. I don't really like my friend and I, Ian, who was on here earlier. We watched one episode of that, like the very first one. And I thought it was so funny when I don't know the characters' names. There's like the main kid, and then there's like the girl with the pink hair who looks like a cat or something. She's like a weird cat ears or something. And he's like, wow, that's so impressive that you did that feat of technical engineering. And then she's like, yeah, since I've been a kid, I've been really good at doing tech stuff. And it's like, wow, this is like the best script writing ever, where the character just like says they're good at stuff without demonstrating that trait. There's like, we're good at this. It's like something. It's like some stupid. I was like, okay, yeah, this is great. Aaron and Sora, cat girl. A lot of people, autistic people on Twitter love. Oh man, I'm glad I don't have Twitter, man. But this cat girl, I don't know. I couldn't really take that seriously. And did she have a robot arm? What was that about? She had like one arm that looked weird, and I was like, is she like a Winter Soldier person? Like, she like vaguely alludes to the fact that she had a dark past with the Empire or whatever. Like whatever they called that system was like a ripoff of Star Wars. They were like the Empire. Whatever, like I don't even know what it was called. It was like some stupid ripoff thing. Its armor, I think, was never explained, which I hate. Yeah, it was like, why did she have like a robot arm thing? It's like, okay. I was like, if she worked for the evil Empire, did they like brainwash her and turn her into a Winter Soldier assassin? Like that's what I thought they were alluding to at the beginning. And then they like never like I don't know. I didn't watch the rest of the show, but from what you're saying, they never really elaborated on that. So I'm like, I don't know. Does it like how many seasons of it? Are there 2 seasons of it now? Is that it? Or are they making more? Is it going to be like a thing that goes on forever, like the old show? Because I'm totally out of the loop, man. I don't keep up on this stuff. I don't keep up on Ninjago. I gave up on it 5 years ago. Ninjago. What a sad state of affairs that show is in. It's just nothing. It just doesn't matter. The Empire. The evil Ninjago Empire. I don't even remember what that was. That was like so funny. It's like season 2. It's only 2 seasons. Oh. Or it's on season 2. Okay. Because I was like, I don't know if I really I'm probably not gonna watch it, but I'm just kind of curious because I was like, are they gonna try and make this kind of a show as long as the OG one? Because I don't like that was 10 seasons, right? So it's like I would, to be honest, man, like it would be really like it would be a creatively bankrupt decision. But if they just rebooted it, I don't mean rebooted in the sense of like the 3rd season. I mean like if they literally just rebooted Ninjago, they could have this, even if it was something like the movie, right? Like the movie where it was clearly a different interpretation of the characters in the story and it was more aimed at kids. I'd be totally, or if it was meant to be more of a comedy, I'd be totally fine with that. My problem with the seasons post season 10, season 11 and onward was that they were like a totally different tone and the characters acted out of character and nothing aligned with what I knew about the show and what I'd grown up with and cared about the characters and all that. And it was just like, it just felt like it was like totally different. I'm like, if they had said this was a different show, that would be fine. But they were trying to appeal to people who like the old show, and they failed. Still fine, but not the best. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think I have time. I just don't think I have time to watch it. Also, I don't have a lot of interest. I mean, it's at least it's something kind of different, but not really, because they have to bring back the old characters. The other thing is like they can't commit, right? Like if they'd committed to this idea where it's like Ninjago, what's it called? Dragons Rising, right? Yeah, that's what you said. And it's like they have these new protagonists. They have this guy Aaron and this cat girl or whatever, and it's like, you know, they're actually the protagonists, and it's like a new show set in the Ninjago world. I'd be like, all right, I don't know if I care enough, but at least something new, right? But it's like they're always like, we've got to bring back Lloyd and Kai, like the old guy. Is like, I swear to God, there'll be like a show 20 years from, or not even 20, maybe honestly 10 years from now, where it's like Kai's there. He's got like a stupid beard, and he's like, "Oh yes, I remember when I did Spinjitzu and defeated Moro," or something. I don't know. It's just, you know what I mean, though, right? It's like they can't let these guys go away. They've got to bring back the old people like every time. It's like we can't commit to having new protagonists. We have to have Lloyd still be a tertiary character. That's the problem. It's just not that interesting. It's the same thing. Lloyd being around would be fine as master for Aaron and Sora. I don't care what they would do about the others, though. Yeah, I like haven't like I said, I don't keep up with it that much, but I heard people talking about how what are the call or something, and wish Nia stayed in the ocean where she belonged. Yeah, same. And they couldn't assassinate her character anymore. But like it was Cole or somebody still hasn't really shown up in the show yet or something. Like he hasn't come back. Like it sounds like they were separated. That's what the first episode of the show established, was that they were like separated kind of from each other. So I guess they're not all together yet or whatever. Everyone is in it besides Jay. What's up? Why what do they got against Jay, man? They're like, everybody's back except Jay. You suck. He's an ultra agent. I don't know. Ultra agents. I remember that theme. Anyone else remember that? Ultra agents. I never got any of those sets, but I remember that. I remember the ultra agents. That would be great if Jay was one of them. It would be something new for him. I just remember that one episode of, was it Crystallized or Seabound? I don't remember. It was one of those where like Jay had this really stupid beard. It's so funny. Just remember watching that. Like I just saw that on YouTube where it's like Jay had some like Santa Claus looking beard on his face. I was like, this is so dumb. Like, what are you doing with this franchise? Jay's Santa Claus hiding in a tower. What happened to Echo Zane? Like, where did he go? You know, like he's gone. I don't know. Going set recently for one of the elemental master characters from Ultra Agents. Oh yeah, you're right. I remember that actually. It was like the green hair girl, right? Poison or whatever the hell her name was. Apparently, Echo Zane is Mr. E, but they never confirmed that, right? Because it was like a canceled animatic, but they never revealed that. So it's like, how's the audience supposed to know that? Like, he's just this character that they introduced and never did anything with. That's the thing, right? Like, that's what I've said for years, is that Zane should have died for real. And then a couple seasons later, Echo Zane came in to fill his role. Like, that's what they should have done. If they really wanted. Echo Zane just didn't exist. Yeah, I guess, because they reversed time or whatever that stupid shit was. I like, honestly, I like Skybound, but they really didn't know what they were doing with that time travel stuff. Because, like, I liked that season and I liked the ending generally, but I think they didn't know what they were getting into. Because then there's all the weird, like, logistics about Jay and Neo were the only ones that remember what happened, and that calls into question why they were the only ones that remember that. Like, did it actually happen? If it didn't happen, how do they remember? Hands of Time opened everything. Oh, yeah, don't even remind me about Hands of Time, dude. That sucked. That was the worst of the 10 seasons, the original ones that I like a lot. That's the worst one, man. That sucked. That whole thing at the end where they're like fighting in the war at the end is like, what was that? There was like so many, like, that should have caused a serious butterfly effect for the rest of the story. Is why Air Jitsu and Elemental Dragons aren't here anymore. Was season 7 the thing that established Air Jitsu? Which one was it? Was that it? Air Jitsu and Elemental Dragons aren't here anymore. There was like the thing. Call it a time tone effect. Oh, yeah. Because they just didn't use it after that, right? I remember people were complaining about like how Cole didn't do the Air Jitsu flying onto the ship when he fell off it in the March the Oni. Season 5 was Air Jitsu. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. It was like because they had to like fight Moro or whatever. Yeah, okay. I'm remembering that now. Yeah, Air Jitsu was dumb. I don't know why they really wrote that in. Like, because it didn't really factor into the plot ever after that point. I like season 5 too. But like all the seasons have like weak stuff in them. Season 5 was like, except for season 9. Season 9 was perfect. That was the best. Season 8 too. Those two are great. They're perfect. They're untouchable. They're the best. They're the Dark Knight of Ninjago. But we can't. Season Hands of Time. We don't talk about that one. Rebooted. We also don't talk about that. We don't talk about those two. They don't exist. Yeah, all those. Oh, that was a time, eh? That was because it was different writers, right? They had the Hagemans, they left, and then they had different writers for season 7. That's why it sucked. Because they weren't there. The animation also sucked too, because I guess they didn't have the same budget or something. I don't know why that is. The season 7 animation quality was like a serious drop, and then the season 8 and 9 looked great, and I was like, what happened here? It was such a weird, like, season 7 seemed like it was in production hell or something. Like, that season turned out horrifically bad. And I don't know why, really. Like, yeah, the writers changed, but why was the animation so bad? Why was the plot so bad? Why was, like, everything about it so bad? There's, like, my friend and I, Ian, who was on here earlier, we have this great joke. Like, we'll never forget this moment in season 7 when they're like chasing the guys through the desert or whatever. The snake guys are chasing like Jay or Kai or somebody. And this random guy is just like holds up a handful of snakes and he just goes, snakey, snake, snake. And it's like, who wrote that in the script? Like, I want to know who wrote that. Who was like, so in the middle of this chase scene, we're going to have this guy go, snaky, snake, snake. I just want to know. I want to talk to whoever like wrote that. That's like really stupid. It's like, what was that? Snaky, snake, snake. That happened. You can find it. That happened in the show. I'm not making it up. That's real. Well, another great moment is in Rebooted when the ninja get the. It's like the writers throw themselves into a corner at the end of season 3, right? Because they wanted the Overlord to be like unbeatable, right? Or they wanted him to like beat the ninja. They also wanted the ninja to like fight him. So they wrote in the weird impenetrable armor of destiny that they wore, and then they like ran in and or took on the Overlord. But then suddenly it like didn't work. And they're like, why isn't the armor working? And then the Overlord goes, because your time is over. It's like, what does that mean? Like, that doesn't answer the question. Like, why was the armor impenetrable and then now it doesn't work anymore? Like, that makes no sense. It's like, it's so stupid. Air Jitsu was just to get to the higher ground. The high ground. Yeah. Your favorite moment in Star Wars, Lego Star Wars Galaxy, the high ground. But yeah, it's just like that was dumb, man. Your time is over, and then it's like, but what does that mean? Like they had this armor that was impenetrable, and then suddenly they can be taken down. That's how to answer a question by not answering it. Like, why isn't the armor of destiny working? Because your time is over. It's like the writers didn't know how to like answer that question. The stone armor was all for nothing. It was just to have cool minifigs, right? It's because they wanted to have new versions of the ninja to make as minifigures, and they were like, oh, what if we made the stone armor? And it was like pointless and it didn't do anything. Yeah, because if it was like impenetrable and perfect, then Zane wouldn't have died, right? Like it's like they were unstoppable. Like they literally like ran through walls with that stuff, and then suddenly it doesn't work, and they're like, what? No! That season was so messy. Like it was like so rushed, and they had to like end it so fast. The thing is, I actually do like Zane's sacrifice. I think that's a great scene. But like everything leading up to it was stupid. Like they had to write in a stupid reason for why Zane had to die, and so he was like, they were like, the armor isn't working for no reason, and then Zane had to go die. Figures people kill each other now over like Kai is in a very expensive Target cube. Yeah. It's just I just stopped buying Ninjago stuff, like Lego sets, because they aren't that good. The Ninjago movie sets were pretty sick though. I'll give them that. And then they just kind of dropped off after that. There was like, I got one of the season 9 sets, I want to say. They didn't make any March of the Oni sets. Remember they had like the one figure pack of Oni guys. That was it. But like Ninjago, like I since then I didn't buy anything. Stone Armor Jay wasn't in the set and he came in a book. Wait, really? So like they put all the other ones in the set and then Jay wasn't there. Oni pack is $60 now. What the fuck? No way, man. No. That's not worth it. The stupid Rex micro. Oh my god, that's a change of topic. But the Captain Rex microfighter, I can't find it anywhere. I tried to I looked in like a bunch of stores near me, couldn't find it. I tried to order it off Lego.com and it's on back order. Everyone's buying these stupid resellers, stupid assholes are like, it's so much money. I hate that. It's like, can I just please have Captain Rex? People are reselling it for like hundreds of dollars. Like, what the fuck? Jay wanted a book, Cole was in a box, and Kai was in the turkey. Everyone else came and said, oh, okay. That's kind of weird. I don't know about that, man. Like, it's funny. I noticed this trend. I don't know if anyone else noticed it. This was that, like, maybe they stopped doing this, but pre season 11, or maybe even after that, it was always Jay and Lloyd that came in the most expensive sets. It was really weird because I don't really think Jay and Lloyd had a particularly like special dynamic in the show, but they always came together. They were in the season. They were in the Great Devourer. They were in the Tournament of Elements battle thing. They were in like another one too that I can't remember. It might have been the Oni Temple. I don't know. It was just weird to me that Jay and Lloyd always came in the same sets together. I was like, why did you put those two together? That's weird. Because it was always like Kai and Lloyd, right? Like they were the bros. They were like this. Jay and or Kai and Lloyd. They were like the power team, the power duo. But then they always put Jay and Lloyd together in Lego sets, and I was like, why? It's a weird choice. Like, okay. Yeah, you should look back. Because it's like, if you look back at those sets, it's always Jay and Lloyd. I don't know why. I don't get it. It's never made sense to me. It's like Jay and Lloyd. Here they are. Yeah, I'm like, at this point, I'm kind of like, I don't want to say I'm done with Lego, but I gotta stop buying it. There's like occasionally sets that come along that I want to get. I want to get the Captain Rex one. I don't know what this set is that's going to have Thrawn in it. I want to get that Thrawn set. I think I was telling you about that on one of my other streams. that Thrawn set I'm going to get. Then I'm done, man. I'm like done with Lego kind of generally, I think. Because I'm going to university and I'm going to take out student loans and I don't have that much money. Jay never came to the Destiny's Bounty with Lloyd from 2015. No! Well, that's too bad. But yeah, it's funny how like they always put those two together. Because I would have thought, Kai and Lloyd would be the two to put together, but they didn't do that. It's weird. I have like these really old books. I want to show them to you. I can't find, where are they right now? I have these like really old books of like Ninjago, like where are they? I'm gonna find them. They're somewhere in this room. They're like kind of cool. Where are they? In this box. I think I was trying to sell them. And then I don't know where I put them. Oh, there they are. Here they are. Found them. Got these. Remember these? These are real classic. These guys. They had like the one focused on each of the main guys. And these were kind of fun. These are kind of fun little books. Remember these ones? But it's like they had kind of these little fun plots where the ninja went and helped out people or something. I don't know. They're like so short. They're like barely books at all. But it's like kind of fun. The Zane one is kind of good actually. Low key. This is kind of good. I remember. And then Cole was in it too. Those are fun. Those are the good old days when Ninjago was fun and it wasn't a corporate product. And there were people that cared about making it. But if you care at all, I could sell you those. I don't know. I don't know if you care. But I'm like, I could get rid of those. Because I don't know if I need them anymore. I have those like comics too. I think I sold those though. I don't know. I like these old Ninjago comics. They're kind of fun. They have kind of cool artwork, but they're not really worth anything to me. I have widened my taste in writing. I've actually been reading this J.R.R. Tolkien biography. It's quite interesting, actually, because I don't know. I like to learn about history, especially for authors that I like. So yeah, there's quite a difference actually. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's quite a difference between Kai, the book, and the Tolkien biography. Very different books. My tastes have changed. My tastes in literature have changed, as I suppose they would in a decade, in 12 years. How old is Ninjago now? 12, 13 years? Somewhere in there. I don't know. Somewhere in there. Somewhere. They got the LOTR books. 13 years. Wow, that's old. Yeah, that's old. Making me feel old because I was like, how old was I when Ninjago started? I was like 6. I was 6. Now I'm like basically 19. It's weird. That feels weird. But yeah, I got LOTR here too. I got this big old book and it's got all 3. Oh, it's got the whole trilogy, and then we got the Hobbit. This one with the art by Alan Lee, which is pretty cool because Alan Lee actually did the concept art for the movies too. They show a lot of this in the behind the scenes making of for the Hobbit movies. Like a lot of the let me flip through this. Like they have art in here like this kind of stuff, right? This art kind of stuff is actually what inspired the visuals in the films. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to look at it and be like, wow, okay, so that's kind of the base for the movies. It's kind of cool to have it. But yeah. This is just becoming a showcase of all my cool stuff, by the way. Here's all my cool stuff, everybody. Look at all my cool stuff. such a freaking nerd. Look at all my great posters, though. That poster there. Wait, I'm pointing the wrong way. The Hobbit Lego poster. That's a rarity. That one. It's so weird that I can't barely find any of that stuff. Like any. I wish I had like a Hobbit, like a Lego Hobbit shirt or something, but I don't. I found this shirt recently that's like a nerd combo shirt, and it's got like the Doctor Who sonic screwdrivers and a lightsaber, and it's got the text of the One Ring around the center, and it's all in the shape of the Deathly Hallows symbol. It's kind of a cool shirt, but I don't have any LOTR specific shirts or posters or anything. But I'm like, I gotta get the Hobbit. I'm quite happy to have this Hobbit Lego poster. You need to complete the DVD collection of the Hobbit. Yeah, I got. What do I have here? I'm gonna keep showing off my cool stuff to you because I can. We can brag about how cool all my stuff is. There you go. I got here the extended edition of the OG LTR. I got the normal Hobbit DVD. And I've got Hobbit extended edition. These are the Blu-rays though. I wish that I had the DVD versions. Lego doesn't do posters. I know that sucks. I wish they did. I also got this too. This kind of a cool little Lord of the Rings and Symphony. It's kind of a cool little like kind of a half documentary, just kind of concert thing where it shows like Howard Shore performing all the music from the movies. It's cool. I also get to see the Two Towers like with a live orchestra back in January. That was sick. It was awesome. I want to go see they're showing Return of the King next January with the live orchestra. I want to go back and see that. Their price though, the tickets were like $150 to $200. Were not cheap. Those were not cheap tickets. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to. It'll be pricey, but it's a fun experience. It's pretty awesome to see with all those nerds. I felt very validated. Except that's when I only got this shirt that I was telling you about with the LOTR with the One Ring text on it. I didn't get that until like a month ago. So when I went to go see it, I didn't actually have a Lord of the Rings shirt. And there were people with like ugly Christmas sweaters with the Eye of Sauron and LOTR shirts. And I was like, I feel so inadequate. Like, I don't even have a shirt on for LOTR. I call myself a fan. I've got this Heir to the Empire shirt, though. It's pretty sick, right? Heir to the Empire. Because my dad found this somewhere. It's like, that's the ultimate nerd thing. Because I've gotten people come up to me saying, that's cool you got that shirt. A lot of people don't read the old stuff. I'm like, you know me. You know me. I'm the ultra nerd. I've got the OG shirt. I had Ninjago shirts when I was younger. I had like a Kai shirt. That was like my favorite shirt. And then I grew out of it. And I'm too old. Too old for Lego shirts. Those are fun though. Those were fun times. I had the Lego shirts. I need to get at least one Lego shirt. I don't really have any anymore. None that fit. I'm too big now. But yeah. Can't even find. Yeah, that's the problem, right? It's just hard to find. Hard to find that stuff. Hard to find anywhere. It's just like my great wall of stuff. It's like all of my favorite things behind me. Legoland and Jago hoodie. Oh, that's cool. That's pretty cool, right? It's not too bad. I have a Mando. I have a Spider-Man sweater, and I have a Mando. Do I have my sweater here? Oh, I have this Spider-Man hoodie. I love to wear it because people always comment on it. They always think it's great. But, yeah. Pretty great sweater here. It's like, and I've had this for years and it still fits. It's great. Still fits. I'm kind of surprised it does, but I like it a lot. Other people do too, so it's fun. It's fun to wear it. I also have a mask somewhere. I have a Spider-Man mask somewhere. Looks very decrepit and old. It's kind of fun though, because every time I go to the drive-in, because we got like 2 drive-ins near where I am, I always like wear my mask, my Spider-Man mask, and my Spider-Man hoodie. People are always like, "Hey, it's Spider-Man." It's really funny. So it's fun to do that. To like express your nerdiness to the world. Yeah. Yeah, well, I am tired, man, and I have not eaten lunch today. I had like a pear and a granola bar, and I walked all the way across town, and I didn't eat anything. And I've been doing this live for 3 hours, so I think I need to go and eat something, or else I'm gonna like die. But yeah, go to Best Buy. All right, well, let me know if you see that Captain Rex freaking thing there. Get me one on your way. But yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, Galaxy. It was nice chatting with you. And thanks everyone else as well. Jack Otherstar, even my buddy Jacob Adamo. It was good to see you too on here. But yeah, Ian and Braden, if you're rewatching this, thanks for coming on and having this very insightful discussion about the Bad Batch, and everyone else who tuned in and chatted about Ninjago and whatever the hell else. It's a fun time. But yeah, take it easy, everybody. Take it easy, Galaxy. See you around. And yeah, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.